Welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is an old friend of mine, an incredibly inspiring gentleman. He's a poet, he's an acclaimed author, and he works now for the mayor's office. His name is Hakim Bellamy. I'm proud to know this guy, and I'm so honored to see his journey and where he's gone from, where he's come to, and what he continues dreaming up and achieving. He's got so much stuff out right now, and just to give you a little hint of what's happening right now, up until September 20th, you can go downtown to the Richard Levy Gallery and check out one of his installations amidst other artists from some poems that he did during his time in Nepal called the Prayer Flag Poems. He also just put out a book called We Are Neighbors, which is photos of post-World War II houses, where he writes narratives from the personal perspective alongside these photos that were taken. This guy's got so much happening. And you're about to hear him sing a little bit.
Life in the townships is dangerous.
I'm gonna get out the way.
There is not a day that goes by without somebody being stabbed or assaulted. People are afraid to walk alone in the streets after dark. House breakings and robberies are increasing, despite the fact that the death sentence can now be imposed for such offenses. Death sentences cannot cure a festering sore. The only cure is to alter the conditions under which Africans are forced to live and to meet their legitimate grievances. Africans want to be paid a living wage. We want part of the general population and not confined to living in our ghettos. We want to be allowed out after 11 o'clock at night and not confined to our rooms like little children. We want to be allowed to travel in our own country and seek work when we want to, and not where the Labor Bureau tells us to. We want to just share in the whole of South Africa. We want security and a stake in our society. During my lifetime, I've dedicated my life to this struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination. I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons will live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and see realized, but my Lord, indeed me, is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa.
Woo. Get it, Hakim.
When they try me for sabotage.
That is a little excerpt from Hakim and I performing at my senior recital, a song that was kind of a collaboration on a poem that he wrote and a song that I composed when I was down in South Africa. But we get into all of that stuff. Hakim has got so much happening, and I can't wait to get him back on the podcast. Y'all are in for such a treat. So put your hands together and welcome my man, Hakim Bellamy, to Art Talk Music. Mr. Hakim Bellamy, thank you so much for being on the podcast, bro. What's happening, man?
Claudio. What's up, bro? This has been a long time coming.
That's right, man. I'm so excited that, this podcast came to be, and I dreamt of having people like you on, people like John on, and a lot of people that are close to me and connected to me in some way that inspire me, bro. So thank you for being on, man.
We are artistically tethered. We are,
hey, bro.
Our stars, you, me, John, and the rest of the extended family were rising at the same time. So regardless of age differences and
there's that connection,
we were all like kind of coming up, and everybody has to do what they have to do to eat and feed their career.
That's right.
But you guys were the kind of cats that are always like looking over instead of up and be like, oh, Dad, what you doing is dope. Let's do something. You invited me to your final thesis, whatever, college thing.
My senior recital, bro. Absolutely,
I was
man.
honored. I was like, damn.
We got to talk about that because
we got
that connection too.
It
was at Ben Michaels, bro. That was at Ben Michaels. Ben Michaels is the spot, man.
Things happen at Ben Michaels.
Things
like the vortex.
So many things.
Yeah,
I can't wait to have Ben Michael on the podcast. He's already agreed.
Oh, that's a legend. You might need a part 1 and part 2.
Oh, for sure, man. And with you, bro, and with a lot of people, man. But what was awesome was that that connection and the reason that I asked you to be part of that senior recital was because of our connection to South Africa.
Yeah,
and that
that's
song
right.
that I'd written
That's right.
in South Africa as my creative response to the class. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was tight because when I went there, it was, my mom was like, yo, that is going to be a life-changing experience, mijito. And I totally underestimated how right she was.
Yeah, for sure.
And man, I went out there and it like changed my life and my perspective and allowed me to like open my heart a lot more. But at the end of the course, it was at the end or maybe it was towards I think it might have been towards the end of the course actually. Anyways, somewhere in the course, in the time that I was down there, they asked all of us to do some kind of creative encounter or some kind of creative response in whatever creative medium we did. If it was painting or if it was writing a poem or if it was composing a song, whatever it was that would express the experience or like some expression that is connected to your experience that you're having at that time. And I wrote a song. Mm-hmm. And that song, is still, I'm hoping it's going to come out on the next album. If not on the story of part 2, part 3 for sure. But, it being connected to South Africa, it inspired me to put the goal upon all of my friends in South Africa that I'd made that I was going to come back within 5 years before they all graduated and give them the album that I put out with all my original music, Mm-hmm. And so that song didn't make it on the first album, but it's going to make it on one of the albums. And that song was something that I wanted to highlight in that senior recital. So I was like, Hakim, come over here and please do some poem. Madiba, Nelson Mandela at that time was sick.
He was sick. That was
November,
passing.
I believe.
That was before his passing. Yeah.
And I was just there earlier that year, and I tried to go to Pretoria, man. I really, I saved up all my money. I didn't go on any of the wine tours or, the shark tours or any of the stuff that all my other classmates did. I was just, all about doing root stuff. And, I met this Muslim guy, Muhammad, who took me to, mosque during Ramadan and showed me all this, amazing other side of spirituality that I'm not able to really see over here. And, it's funny that I get, pigeonholed into being Arab or,
of course,
Muslim when I'm traveling.
Features, my friend. That's
I know,
that's
bro. And the facial hair, man.
That's what they do. They're like,
extra surge.
Just because we go a day or two without shaving, you think we look like, Anyway,
it's scruffy.
Get me started.
It's not fair.
Yeah, get me started. It's unfair. It's unfair. But it's beautiful though. You know what I'm saying? So yes.
But so on the real, when did you go to South Africa? And tell me about that because I was inspired when you had gone because I think you went a couple of years.
So I went in 2012, right before. So Mandela died. I was doing my homework, aka Wikipedia. December 5th, 2013 was when Mandela passed, and I was invited to be there in 2012 by Marge Nessett. VSA, Very Special Arts, North Forth Art Center, which is an amazing program. Everybody on the podcast, if you don't know what VSA is, it's a nationwide federal government program. We call it Very Special Arts for folks who are developmentally disabled to get not just access to the arts performances, but to create art and be part of the performances. And so usually in your city, town, hamlet, county, state, there are certain entities that receive funding to provide those spaces. Yeah. And besides providing world-class music, North Forth Arts, world-class festivals where they used to bring, they don't do it anymore, African dancers and African contemporary dancers here. North Forth was also known for their Very Special Arts program. So Marge, a good friend of mine who I still look up to. Shout out to Marge Nessett. If you know her and you're listening to this podcast, tell her Hakim is her biggest fan. I want to be her when she grows up. Marge has this personal goal of trying to visit she's already visited every continent, but every single country before she leaves this planet. Wow. That's how much she loves people and culture. And I'm trying to be like her, and I haven't even touched all the continents. But anyway, she took me with her and she said, you're the new Poet Laureate. And I had done some things with her in the past there, specifically connected to their African contemporary dance series, which they used to bring. And then, they had to discontinue it because, funding and how Americans feel about the arts and stuff. But it was amazing program. And
what was that? 2010, 11?
Yeah, I went, by the time I went with her, they had been doing it for 6 or 7 years,
Wow.
and they made it up to about 10 or 11 years before they had to let it go.
Wow.
But she took me with her, and it was like MAPS International, organization out of New York that worked with arts presenting organizations that brought contemporary dance artists. Because people, we're in Albuquerque, we're close to Santa Fe, no shade, but it's really popular to hold up and adore traditional arts, whether it's traditional Native and Indigenous arts, which you should do because, you're paying rent on their land, or whether it's celebrating traditional African dance, traditional African drumming, and those things. Yeah. And so what that leaves a vacuum of is a space for contemporary African artists who are doing very modern things. And if the only way they can make money is to come to America and do tribal things and historical cultural dances and heritage things, that's great. But if they went to school for modern art, that's not going to help them out much. And so how do we create a pathway for this new generation of artists from Africa to show what they can do? And what they can do is amazing. And it's postmodern, it's post ballet, it's post tap, it's post all these things. Wow. And it's really political and commentary about the kind of post-colonial things that are happening in their country. And, Americans don't want that. They just want to see gun boot dance and traditional African stuff because, we commodify culture in this country. So this program was exclusive to people who are doing contemporary artists from Africa who are doing contemporary art and finding avenues for them to come to America. And they were kind of evolving to include artists from different genres to partner and collaborate. And I went with that kind of first cohort. And even though nothing really materialized after that, I got, like you got, the opportunity to change my life. And as a black man in America, to be able to go to South Africa and it split my wig, it melted my face, it changed my whole paradigm. And I underestimated how much I would be changed by that trip. Right. And it just so happened to be when Mandela was very ill and before, I guess I went in
inevitably
6 months before he passed, so.
Man, it's definitely a trip to have an opportunity like that come up, and how beautiful that VSA was a thing, man. I remember North Fourth in that time as well. A Alive was doing something, there at the North Fourth Art Center, and I have a connection with that place from doing a video from when I came back from New Orleans before I went, the year before I went to. So it was like, it was around the time that you were in South Africa, and I got to do that there at the North Fourth Art Center, but. It's such an awesome space, man. It's such an awesome place to do things, and you're there, and there's all kinds of art. And at the time, there was like a children's art exhibit or high school kids art exhibit up all the time. They had all kinds of stuff going. Yeah. And I love those kind of organizations that really push and have things and connections with places like, they become like catalysts for kids growing up, man. And you don't see the effect until way later.
No.
But places like that change lives, man. And places like a lot of places that offer the opportunity for kids to express themselves.
Well, it makes you they didn't know that you were going to travel the world, but that might be your first window into another culture and to teach you to not be afraid of it. Man. To teach you how to collaborate and integrate spiritually and creatively with it. And so then when you go there and you actually meet the people and they're cool as hell, you're like, yo, I've been here before.
Yeah, man. You feel that deep connection.
Yeah,
that's right. There's no disconnect. As well as the people, the more you travel, the more you realize how similar we are everywhere.
Love it.
I mean,
love it.
That's without a doubt. And things happen everywhere.
You're going to make me pull up my favorite quote. It's a Twain quote about travel. Twain quote. Y'all getting into my keyword algorithms here.
Uh-oh. Getting the secrets, bro.
Get all the secrets. I'm not that smart. I just know how to search things really fast.
Wikipedia, please.
Here we go. In Innocents Abroad, Mark Twain wrote, quote, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. Yeah. And many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime. End quote. Drop the phone. Yeah, Mark Twain. What?
Yo, that's tight. Though.
Bars.
That is
bars. It's hard. I always go back to that. It's sad I haven't memorized it.
Beautiful, man.
However,
Right.
because I invoke it so many times, but
Right.
that's like my methodology on life. I'm like, if you're a racist, I'm gonna put you on a plane.
You go travel and you see the people that are the same as
Put
you.
a racist on a plane. We should start
God.
we should start a foundation that collects money
What?
to put racists on planes to places where people don't look like them.
That would be a trip.
That was
man.
it. That's
that would be a
that's
trip.
Heal the world, make it a better place. Right there.
Person by person. Man.
Person by person.
yeah.
That's it. I bet you I could get at least 10 people of color to work 2 jobs and take all their extra money to send a racist white person to a country that is brown.
Ooh.
And just to let them stay there for a week. Because
Please.
we're philanthropists. People of
Please.
color are philanthropists.
Right,
You
right.
know, actually, there's a report for all those, because I'm a real nerd and poet. There's a report out there, look it up, that
Right.
says lower income people give a higher percentage of their income, gross income, or maybe net, whatever. We give a higher percentage of both parts of our income to philanthropic causes. Like, we're more generous with less money because rich people are cheap. So, proportionally. I'm sorry. I know there's the Warren Buffetts of the world.
Right.
And, 1% of their income could end world hunger. 1% of my income won't even get one person to college, right? But I understand that. I know math. But by and large, poor people give a higher percent of their income to charities, including the church, because we believe that, like, it's like why I tip extra hard, because I used to be a waiter.
It's part of our
You know what I'm
experience
saying?
of
Like,
knowing
yeah.
that you're paying it forward of that karma. Man.
Exactly.
What you're talking about reminds me of what happened this past weekend, man. There's this amazing artist who's to be unnamed because, he or she will be on the podcast to be coming up soon.
Boom.
On the road. But this artist was so generous, man, has such a huge heart that they saw it upon themselves to, help out another art. Like, not even just talking about this situation, not to single that person out or anything like that, in case the people that are connected to that experience hear this podcast. But what this girl does is every single show she's got this mentality of karma, of purchasing a piece of art from another artist. And by doing that, you
Amen.
are creating
Amen.
karma for yourself to sell a piece later in the day.
Absolutely.
And how beautiful is it that she's been doing that on, and it works for her, which is amazing. And I mean, who knows the correlation, but the mentality and the approach and the perspective of thinking about things by you give and you will receive.
Dude.
And being a waiter, you understand what
You
it's like.
understand that. It's a pound of flesh,
Oh my God, yeah.
It's a pound of flesh. Like, if you give me your soul on stage,
Yep.
I can at least give you a tenth of a
At
tithe.
least, man. Think about what I used that $5, $10, $15, $20 for otherwise. You know what I'm
At
saying?
least. And that's how we worship each other.
Yeah,
That's how
man.
we worship each other in his or her own image, whatever kind of God you believe in, right? And you're right. It's like, it's absolutely karma. I feel like for me, how I've expressed that in my own life is that, as a poet, there's no big money in poetry until you're dead. So as a poet, you are looking for opportunities to share your work. And there's lots of community events, especially as a proudly self-identified political poet.
Right.
I write a poem about how I feel about the injustices of our immigration system, and then I get invited to read it at an immigration rally. And they're like, we only have $50, or we don't have any money. Would you come read your poem? Of course I'm gonna come read my poem, because I didn't write it for me to read it. It's like, I already,
That's right.
I know what I think. I'm trying to hopefully share it with the world so they can say they agree, and that makes me less crazy. But like, I always used to, especially early in my career, I was always bound by the philosophy that I don't care how much money you have. If you're doing good work, I don't have the wherewithal and the resources to write you a check for the work that you're doing to support immigrant families.
Right.
I'm not paid like that.
Right.
But if me coming to read my poem at your rally helps you raise money, sign me up.
Absolutely.
Because, and I'll give you the poem for free.
That's right.
Because that's what I can give.
That's beautiful.
But every time I do that, to me, like, and Every time I do that,
in some way it comes back
the universe
to you.
pays me back tenfold.
Yeah.
Because there's somebody in that audience that hears it and says, hey, I'm doing a rally in Santa Fe and I'm a lawyer. And I want you to come read that poem to a bunch of lawyers who are coming in town for a conference.
Right.
What's your fee?
Right.
And, I lowball them. Like, oh, no, $150. That'd be cool. I could pay my cable bill. And they're like, right, $500. Come read your poem. And I'm like,
I was about to say, Hakim. Don't do that, man.
they're like, God bless you.
Yeah.
My son, I always tell people my favorite answer to that. My favorite answer to that when people would say like whatever they'd pay me, I'd be like, my son thanks you. My 10-year-old, now he's 10. At the time, it was like my 2-year-old son thanks you. My 3-year-old son thanks you. That's school supplies or soccer cleats or whatever the hell else it is, right? You know what I'm saying?
That's beautiful, man. Talking about kids, man, I want to ask. There was a question I had in my mind before, today when before we had agreed to do this podcast, and I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about, man. It was funny because this past weekend I was doing an art show with my pops in Utah, and
shout out to your pops though.
Hey man, thank
the
you.
OG.
Yo, man.
The original.
He's busting his ass off all the time, man. He's on the road again,
Yeah.
But,
the beta version, Claudio.
he wanted to name me Guillaume Jr., bro.
Right.
My mom was like, no.
Yeah, moms do
calling
that.
The house doing senior. You want the senior or the junior? No,
Yeah,
no.
I need to know what's up.
But man, when we finished this art show, I got on the plane on Monday, and on the first flight, my dad always drops me off early. He's always about being prepared and stuff. So got to the airport super early, was just chilling, hanging out, like getting stuff on my, on my computer. And this lady sits next to me with her baby, with her 9-month-old, adorable, beautiful baby, man. And many of my close friends know that I'm not that great with babies that are not of my own family. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or even kids in general.
You're not the baby whisperer.
I'm not never been that stereotype of just being like, everyone be like, he's gonna be a great dad. It's like, no. I'm like, please get away from me. It's not, if it's my cousin, if it's my nephew, if it's someone that I know, I don't have a nephew yet, but I would love them with all of my heart. But
just putting that out there to all of my siblings listening, I'd be an awesome uncle.
Please.
Just so you know, just
Lucas,
resume.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Come on, get to work, Catalina. Come on. So the idea is that when I got there and the baby showed up, in the stroller, and the mom, I had my headphones on and was doing some music stuff and was just kind of like gonna ignore, just like not, And that adorable 9-month-old baby looked over at me and was just staring.
Or they demand your attention.
Man.
They like drop everything.
It was amazing.
They're like, I'm here.
It was just like,
I'm a baby and I'm in the building.
Yo.
What's up?
It overtook me, bro. For the first time, I felt what everyone else feels when they're like, oh my God, the baby, look at the baby. It's so adorable. I just want to, oh my God. Everything stops. Everything else falls around.
Everything else stops, yeah.
And I had that experience where it was like that little 9-month-old adorable baby was just like enveloping my attention, and all of a sudden I just loved that part of myself that before I wasn't loving.
Well, I'll tell you what, Claudio, the thing about really small babies, my son hasn't been really small in a long time, but I'm blessed that my brothers have really small. My nieces and nephews are small, like 4, 3, and 2. But and actually, since we're here, shout out to Dominic, Olivia, and Kaya, right? Familia. But that, they, at that stage of development, they don't have a lot of attention span, you know. And before we drug them as ADHD, kids just don't have a lot of attention span. We don't need to drug them. And when they're really small, they're trying to find focus, and they can only see about 2 or 3 feet in front of themselves. And so if they catch your gaze for that long, it's a blessing. It's a miracle. It's some real shit. Can I say shit on the podcast?
Yeah, come on.
It's some real shit. If they can focus on you, or because infants see energy. Yeah. They can't quite see yet. I was told when my son was a baby that it takes 9 months to 18 months for their eyes to develop to where they can see more than 3 feet in front of them. And so they know mommy and daddy because mommy and daddy are all up in their grill.
And that voice.
But everyone else is just like a blur, and then eventually their distance gets longer. So if they lock it with you, and you're more than 2 or 3 feet away, they don't see your eyes and your handsome stubble. They see your aura. And that's what they're focused on. So that's no small thing. No discount to that. That's no small thing.
It was a powerful experience. I'm gonna tell you that, because the reality is that I haven't had like, all cherry experiences with young infants. And we got, everything was cool. And then I got up, I had to go to the bathroom before we boarded the plane. And then I got on the plane and saw the lady, just kind of smiled at her, because I talked to her as I was smiling and, interacting with her beautiful 9-month-old baby. And man, what happened on the plane is that I got on and walked by her, smiled at her, and went and sat in my chair. And this other lady who was right around the same age with her own 9-month-old daughter sat right in front of me. And usually I just gotten some, headphones, which I was using at the moment, and I was grateful for because I saw the baby. And it wasn't until like the last 45 minutes of the trip.
That was Claudia's polite way of saying that they were loud as shit.
Yo,
and
come on.
I'm glad I had headphones on. Let's be honest.
I'm just saying I was grateful that I
had these soundproof.
Yes, exactly. I love babies, but at that moment I was just gonna listen to what I was listening to, do what I was doing, and then it was in the last 45 minutes of the flight that all of a sudden the baby in front of me starts making eye contact with me and just looking behind.
Yeah, the baby was like, "What you got in them headphones, son?" Baby was like, I'm trying to listen to something too.
Why aren't you looking at me? Come on.
I'm trying to get something too. Yeah. Like, what's up?
And so all of a sudden, I just started, I took off my headphones and just started interacting. And this lady spoke Spanish. And so, she and I were speaking Spanish, and I was speaking Spanish to her baby. She told me her baby's name, and her baby and I were just flirting the whole time. And that was what she was saying. She was like, they are, man.
So they do.
She was like, te está coqueteando, because, she's flirting with you. And it's like, hey, this is awesome. Like, I never have this happen to me to where I'm happy with it. And I'm loving to just be like, oh, you're so dope. ¿Qué pasó, Ari? ¿Cómo está linda? ¿Qué pasó, niña? Just doing the baby voices.
See, babies
I don't know if I'm going to do that or not when I have my own baby, but
I'm going to tell you this. Let me tell you something, Claudio. Babies are promiscuous because they don't care where the attention comes from.
Yeah.
Like,
they just want
they're not loyal to you.
No, I know that.
They're just loyal
right.
to attention.
Yeah.
They're not loyal to you. They're just like, who can I get it? Can I get my fix from right now?
From you.
But I will tell you something. Here's a life hack.
Yeah.
Here's a cheat code to parents and future parents around babies on planes. Not to be confused with Samuel L. Jackson and snakes on a plane. But babies on planes, right, is that they... I had to learn this from my son because when my son's mother and I traveled for the first time, because we're both from New Jersey, so we were going home to the motherland from New Mexico, and taking our at the time 1-year-old, and we got on the plane and we were nervous and we did all the bad tricks, CYFD or DIFUS, don't come here, because it was like, how do you give your baby Benadryl? Or we didn't go as far as putting whiskey on his gums. He wasn't teething quite yet. But being able to say, how do you sedate your baby when you fly them? Right. Because they're going to scream, and you don't want to be the bad person on the plane. But I'll tell you this, my son started crying, and, people, and they turn around and they're like, they're passive aggressive anger, and they stare like they were never a 2-year-old. And maybe they were never a 2-year-old whose parents were fortunate enough to afford to fly. But whatever. Not my business. I care about my son, Papa Bear. So the people would give us all that attitude, and we actually sat in the back intentionally to try to be really, considerate and respectful.
Right.
Because we know that only the poor people would understand us sit back there. But anyway, because we're poor. So so we're far from the first class where they would actually throw our baby out the plane if they were pissed off, because it would ruin their drink. But what I'm saying, dang, hard classism, too hard classism. It's late. If you're listening to this in the morning, it's late.
It's coming out.
It's late right now, right? You know what I'm saying? But Claudio got me amped up. But I remember that, it was one particular lady, and the look she gave me, the cut of eye she gave me was just like this, like we weren't worth being on that plane. And in that moment, I looked at my son and I said, cry louder. Cry louder, son. Yeah. Like you express yourself, fly your freak flag, be a baby. She's jealous she's not as young as you. She's jealous she'll never be young again. She's jealous because we both paid the same price for this ticket and she has to listen to you scream, which she thinks is noise, but I think is music. And so that's what I told my son when he was one. I didn't say the F word because, I'm a parent, but that was my thinking. And consoling my partner at the time, my son's mother, to be like, 'cause she was super
stressed
because she doesn't want these people to hate us. And I'm like, screw them, because they've been a kid once and they just forgot. Honestly, they forgot. But I will say this is the cheat code. Sorry for the diatribe. Was that it's because imagine you were a baby and you get on a plane for the first time in your life. There's all the things you have to deal with, which is why babies cry when they come out the womb. Because first of all, they're hooked up to the super UV vacuum umbilical cord, and they're getting all this food, and then they come out and the doctor smacks them in the ass and they're exposed to air. I would cry too. Right.
Come on now. All of us.
Because for the last 9 months, I've been getting food intravenously.
Warm,
and I've been straight.
Nice vibrations.
Yeah, like the music was far away. Now everything's loud. Right. That's a big experience. Now, when you get on a plane for the first time, when you ascend and your ears pop for the first time, that ear pressure, you don't know what it is. You have no idea what it is, so of course you're gonna cry. We chew gum or go to sleep or wear headphones. We do all those things to avoid the ear popping because it's annoying to us. But grown-ups know how to get over it. But if you're a baby experiencing that for the first time, you're gonna yell, and everybody else on that plane can get over it because they were that way too the first time they flew, regardless of how old they were.
You're so right, man.
Right?
No, you're
you know what I'm saying?
Right. That's so true to say.
Right.
We often forget that each one of us used to be a baby.
Right.
One of my favorite podcasters and guys that I listen to, comedians, Joe Rogan, says that he's like, the first thing you learn when you're a parent is that you realize, every single person used to be a little baby. You know what I'm saying? And now they just grew up, and some of them didn't really grow up.
Some of them, they let's say they increased in size. Yeah, but they may not have grown up.
That's right, man. It's the truth, though, man.
Those are the stages of development.
I've slowly learned to have more compassion when it comes to babies and when it comes to experiences like that. But it was a trip to have that experience happen to me this past weekend and have a positive experience with babies. For sure. Now, man, the reason I brought that all up and into getting back to what I wanted to ask you and the question that I was thinking about, it's all good because that's what the podcast is about.
That's how we fill an hour.
That's right.
People.
Come on now.
Welcome to the game.
Come on now. That's why these podcasts go an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, however long they're going to go. All right. The reason that I brought that up was because a question that I thought about and, ponders, it's something that I ponder, I should say, and often lingers over me whenever the idea of having my own child comes up is how my intention, my drive, my creativity, what in me changes as an artist. You know what I'm saying? And so even though your son is 7 years old now, how old is he?
10.
Excuse me, 10 years old now. Mm-hmm. Thinking back to 2008.
Yeesh.
Which is when I graduated from high school, man. Ooh. I just had my 10-year high school reunion. Ooh. Yo, and some kids got 10. Some of those friends got 10-year-old kids.
I'll tell you what, it was yes. And some of those friends haven't made it. Right? Let's be honest. Like some of those friends have 10-year-olds, and some of those friends haven't even.
But there is a difference between
some of them are RIP.
Between being born into a life and at 17 learning how to be a mother and learning how to raise a kid, and never growing up yourself. But getting back to the question, man, it's I really worry. Not worry, I should say. There's no part of me. There's no part of me that starts from that feeling of worry, but that part of curiosity, because
that what's next
more so than marriage for me. I'm very consciously aware that. From the genetics that I come from, I think I've told you this, Hakim, before, but my mama's mama had 13 kids.
Go ahead,
from the
Mom.
same grandma and grandpa. And my daddy's mama and grandpa had 20 kids, and 13 survived, and 11 survived on my mom's side. So I've got a gigantic family, and obviously both my grandparents, my grandpapas, I should say, were very fertile.
Yeah.
And so you're like me. I'm not gonna have an issue.
That too.
Yeah, right.
I'm one of those I'm so fertile. If I look at a woman,
come on, you can't smell the underwear because she'll get she will get pregnant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, really potent. So we take precautions because I can only afford one.
That's what I'm saying. And you had your baby. Now you're 40 years old. You said so. You're 30 years old when you had your baby.
Yeah, but I would say I'm 40-year-old version. But I have a 10-year-old son. So that is emphatically not true.
Don't be lying to me like that.
Emphatically not true.
Mr. Port Laureate, come on, bro.
There's evidence. There's physical evidence that I would be
ethics in all this, bro.
But you know what, Claudio? That's real. That's real AF. That's keeping 100, because I feel like for me, and I'm sure my son's mother could vouch for this, I was one of those guys that in my head, I come to the conclusion that when I found out I was going to be a father, I had come to the conclusion that I was going to have to quit my career and go work in a factory like pre-industrial revolution just to make ends meet, because that's the fear-mongering they do. That's the fear-mongering they give you in high school, because we are a puritanical society, to say you should never have sex because if you have a child, that's the worst thing in the world. In other countries who have way lower teen pregnancy rates than we do, they don't villainize sex. They don't make sex such a scare, such a boo. And they definitely don't threaten you with hell or indentured servitude because you've had a child when you were a teenager. Yep. And I think the best thing we could do to help those teens is to actually put services around them instead of this threat that they will never be able to be somebody. No, because I didn't have my child until I was 29. 29, all right. And I still bought into that programming and that mythology that they had told me.
It's so engraved in us.
You have to quit everything you do.
That's the formula, man. Right, when you're dead, you got to bring in the bread.
Sure, right.
Every month. Every week.
So that is, your fears are real. They're real because they were intentional, because that was everything that was been programmed into you, right. K through 12. But I always say this, and you're right to fear a child more than marriage or any serious relationship, men, talking to you men, you relationship phobes. Because the difference between marrying somebody and having a kid is that you can't divorce your kid. Right. Your kid is your kid forever. Right. If your relationship ain't working, you can leave it. There's lots of mechanisms to do that. You know what I'm saying? Yep. But as a parent, there's a little bit more riding on it. But what was great about it, because big risk, big reward, is that dude or gal or other or both is gonna love you until they're a teenager. Unconditionally, right? Of course. And that's more
until they're a teenager. What you mean until they're hopefully until?
That's actually more than you will ever get out of your partner, male, female, or otherwise. Sure. Is this kind of unconditional love, And I feel like I'm still in the sweet spot because my son's only 10, and he already begins to question me, but he still thinks I'm cool. And then there's a point where he won't. And we'll all be over it. But it's just been. I'll say this to your fears is that I thought I'd have to give up my career, and actually, it is the thing that has catalyzed my career. Because once my son was in the picture 10 years ago, I got to a point where if poetry was a hobby or a tool I got to be cool or get laid, it became, at that moment when he was the real thing that was coming and came, it was like, you ain't got time to be hobbying, and you ain't got time to be doing stuff just to be cool to girls, guys, whatever sex you're interested in, gender you're interested in. It was like, if you're going to do this and raise a child, then you better do this and take it seriously. And really, his birth kicked me into an overdrive. It kicked me into a higher gear in my career, because it was like, if you're not going to do this, do something else and take care of your family. If you are going to do this, do that shit. And that was pretty much, it is before Albuquerque was kind enough to make me Port Laureate. It was before lots of good things happened in my career, but it was like, my son made my poetry serious. My son made my poetry a career.
He put fire.
He made it a career, And
as opposed to putting out your fire, he just
putting out fire,
put more wood and coal.
And additionally, he expanded what I wrote about. Because before that, I would think correctly, and this was a lot of the critique I got as an artist before my son came around, was that it was overtly political and only hip hop, and I was in this thing where I was writing poems for me. Yeah. And after he was born, I was writing poems for the world, because that's what he was going to inherit. He was going to inherit this world, and I started saying, this stuff has to be bigger than my ego, because if I want to change the world for him, it can't just be what I like. It's got to be what's honest and what's real,
Wow. Yeah. 29 years old when were you dating the baby mama, or were you married?
I was, when Tracy moved out here, shout out to Tracy Pontani, his mom, and shout out to Juan, her new partner, and, his older brother, Toby, who I didn't mention, and his little sisters, Nora and Lucy. Tracy was a big part of why I landed in Albuquerque, but she came to visit because we weren't exactly dating. We had dated before I moved here. We had planned on moving here, and as was the nature of our relationship, on and off, rocky, roller coastery. When I moved out here, we weren't together, but then she came and visited, and we went to Juarez. And 9 months later,
was the end of that.
9 months later, my son was born. So let me just put this theory out there for the podcast, have it documented. I assume that my son was procreated in Juarez, which makes him a covert Mexican national. Because 9 months later, he was born in Albuquerque. And I just want to put that out there. Put that out there.
Guess that was planned. All right.
Just want to put that out there. You know. But yeah, like it was. We didn't have no money, and I was a full-time college student at that time.
You were going to college
grad
where?
student at UNM. Shout out to the Lobos. Everyone's a Lobo.
So that's probably where then I first saw you or bumped elbows with you because you were doing a bunch of stuff over
I was doing a bunch of stuff on campus.
Oh yeah, bro. That was what years? What years were you over there?
They showed me love. That's where I did most of my early gigs.
Right.
I was the college slam champ in 2005 and 6 and maybe 7. But that's when I moved here, January 2005.
Straight from New Jersey or from
Straight from New Jersey. Straight out of Compton.
Shout out to New Jersey. No, straight out
of
Cherry Hills, but where?
Sicklerville. Straight out of Sicklerville. Yeah.
Shout out. I'm gonna go meet you Sicklerville soon.
You should go to Sicklerville. You should go to Sicklerville when you go to Philly. He's getting ready to go back to Philly because Claudio's an international man of mystery, and I'm hoping that he goes through Sicklerville.
I will, bro. I will. I'm gonna be in Cherry
Go
Hills.
to a Wawa, get yourself a soft pretzel.
Oh yeah, it's like that.
Get yourself a soft pretzel.
Wawa.
Yeah, Wawa.
Wawa.
WAWA. It is the. If heaven. Tupac once said, "If heaven had a ghetto." I say if heaven had a convenience store, it would be a Wawa. It would be a Wawa.
All right. I'm gonna do it, bro. I'm gonna try it.
You gotta do it, and then you could even get a cheesesteak there. One of the more competitive cheesesteaks in the region. One of the more competitive is a Wawa.
Really?
Cheesesteak. They do good. They got the bread. They got the meat. They got everything.
That's what's up. I asked around a lot because when I was there in Philadelphia last year, I got to go twice last year, but the second time that I was there was right around my birthday before I went on this Europe trip and all this stuff. But I asked around all of the cheesesteak spots and asked my friends to locals to people that we saw at the art show over there, and they told me, of course, about Gino and Pat's.
Gino and Pat's. That's. I
went there and did the whole thing, which was awesome. But then I went to Jim's on South Street.
Oh, guys,
up top. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about?
One more time. I'm gonna tell you what. Gino and Pat's.
That spot was amazing.
Whatever.
They're all right.
But no. For my new Mexicans that are listening to this podcast, let me give you a tutorial. So, when your family comes into town, and they're not quite they haven't got the resistance to the spice, to the heat, and you take them to, I don't know, Little Anita's or some no disrespect, Little Anita's, y'all make a mean sopapilla, but some bland ass spot because you don't want them you don't want to hurt them. You don't want to hurt them. You love them. You don't want them to die.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So you take them to the touristy spot that's middle of the road.
Yeah.
Milk toast even. Right,
milk toast.
That's what Gino's and Pat's is in Philly.
Right,
you go there because you want to take a picture. Yep. You want to Instagram because
that's right. That's right. You're like, look at where I am. Look across the street. Yep.
You want a real steak though. Oof. You go to Jim's on South Street. You go and you stand in line. And while you stand in line, you look at all the pictures on the wall.
All of them,
Bill
bro.
Clinton came and had a steak there. Wesley Snipes came and had a steak there. And you look and the guy says, "What do you want?" You're like, "You want green peppers and onions. You want cheese whiz. You want provolone. You want
You're watching
Swiss."
everyone do their sandwiches before you. So you're just thinking about what you're going to do.
You're confused
because
because you've seen everybody do everything.
Yeah.
You see all the combinations. You don't know what to do next. And you know they're going to embarrass you if you don't know what you want when you get there. Yes. And then you go there and you take a bite and you just go into cardiac bliss.
Now, hold on.
I always say cardiac arrest in a bun. It's ready. It is, bro.
Yeah, you better be ready for that nap afterwards.
You might need a Tums.
I have to share with you, bro, because the Jim's on South Street was one of my favorite experiences in Philly of the 2 times that I went there this past year. And I look forward to going this next time because
I just got a whole new respect. Birthday. I already loved Claudio.
Hey, bro.
But now Claudio and I apparently are soulmates because people always have this argument. And unless you say Jim's on South Street, I don't know.
That's what's up, bro. All right, I gotta tell you a story. You're gonna laugh at me now because this is my deep connection with Jim's on South Street. I was there. It was the setting was it was my birthday. It was Thursday, September 14th last year, 2017, and my father and I had set up the art show, or we were gonna set up for the art show that night. And so he's like, "What do you want to do the daytime?" I was like, "I want to go eat a cheesesteak on my birthday." And so we went to Jim's on South Street, which was where everybody had recommended, and I went, checked it out. You know, my dad and I got in there, and as you said, we waited in line. You see everyone doing their thing. You're going crazy thinking about, oh man, I was thinking about doing this, and now I'm just gonna put it all on there and just go in, you know. And I did that, and then you get up towards the front. You know what I'm saying? You pick out the chips. Oh man, I even picked out a beer. I got myself a Corona. It was my birthday. There was a pretty girl at the register who was the one that checked us out.
Yes,
you know, my dad.
Philly girls are pretty.
A smooth talker, so he was just like smooth talking her up, and I was just like smiling and like, it's my birthday. You know, I was happy. You know, right?
Claudia was like, "Go cheesesteak, it's your birthday."
And you're watching. You know what I'm saying? You're watching them prepare this amazing thing that you're watering over, and as it gets to you, and the cold beer and the chips that you're about to go up and enjoy. Upstairs, because you know the dining room is upstairs.
It's upstairs because the line is downstairs.
It's huge, and then they got the you know everyone's
carpet,
cooking everything downstairs
partition,
in the bathrooms, and that's it. And so I go holding the tray because you know I used to be a waiter. I think I got this. You know what I'm saying? I love being a waiter for like 2 years.
I see this going terribly wrong.
And I go, you know, in front of my dad, you know, up the stairs, and you know you go up the first flight, and it kind of flattens out for the next one. And right as it flattens out, I just like caught the stair and fell forwards and like cut my jeans and like, you know, like cut my knee open just a tiny bit.
But did you save the steak?
No, bro. It went everywhere all over the stairs, man. My beer went down. Both of the, I was carrying mine and my father's.
Hold up. So here's the real question. This is all about Jim's customer service.
They took
4 stars on Reddit.
I'm gonna answer you before you already asked. Jim's on South Street was amazing.
5
Not
stars.
only were they like super
stars.
sweet about it, but like, you know,
they're like, you're not the first person to biff it on this step.
Yes. I didn't go back though and like look at that pretty girl because I was so embarrassed and I couldn't stand like thinking about going back there and be like,
listen here, pretty girl, I need another steak.
You see this blood on my knee? Look,
girl, I ride for my cheesesteak.
And it's my birthday too. I'm gonna cry if I want to.
And do you have a Band-Aid?
Please.
It's a peroxide bag. That's it. You just gotta step up to it. Lean into it.
It was
lean
amazing.
into it.
It was,
you know what used to be dope there, but that you might have missed, and maybe you did this. Maybe you did this. This is like super underground Philly native trivia. At one end of South Street, when you get towards the waterfront, where you can see Camden, New Jersey, they have like I think they now have a Rita's water ice and a Wawa down there. But if you go the other way up the block, back towards like Society Hill, Rittenhouse Square, whatever, Hahnemann Hospital, there was a Tower Records, just one of the few left in the country.
Records,
Tower Records, the best record store ever, like legendary. They had 2 of them in Philly. They had the other one was on Maple, Walnut, I can't remember what the street is, but in Center City. But they were like, and I think it then became an FYE, and I don't even know if it's a record store now anymore.
Wow, man. I'm gonna have to ask around about that.
Yeah,
I didn't see that when I was there, man. I would have loved to have.
Oh man, it's like 4 floors, like wax back when people used to use wax. I know wax is making a comeback now, but it was that Tower Records. I spent so much time there growing up.
So much money,
so much money just hanging out near there.
How cool, man.
Yeah, that was my spot, man. That's like a different part.
Man, speaking of record stores, man, there's such an experience nowadays with record stores coming back with vinyls and stuff like that, you know, because there was that time back in the day where it was the thing. I grew up in a weird situation with CDs because I wasn't the kind of kid like Jono would, like, you know, around the same time when we were both coming up in high school and stuff, he was working at Perennials while we were in high school. And so he was basically taking all of his money that he worked very hard for and purchasing all kinds of CDs from Hastings. Like, that dude cleaned up the jazz section at Hastings back in the day, you know? And I had the relationship with my father having like some CD catalog that would come to him and he'd order CDs out.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And I
was it? Columbia, like they had all of those,
you know, like
1 cent, 10, 11 CDs.
All of those like deals that would come through the catalogs.
Yeah.
And you'd be
I was
like,
about that life
this
too.
and this and this and this and this, and we'd all pick out like 10 CDs, you know what I'm saying? So they would show up in a package and you'd just be like, oh, Christmas is here. Like, I got, you know, that was the first, I got this album called Jazz Impressions.
Dude.
And it was a compilation of like, you know, of Naima, of John Coltrane, of Miles Davis's Bye Bye Blackbird, of Charles Mingus, of all kinds of amazing jazz guys that I then became super hip to way later in my life and studied and fell in love with. But that relationship of like of not, you know, for me, not so much going to record store, because, you know, I grew up in Tijeras. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in the mountains, and then we moved when I was in 3rd grade up to the East Mountains, up to San Diego Park. So there wasn't no record store up there, and it wasn't like I would go to town and go to the record store. Hastings was really the only record store,
Right.
You know. And Hastings
R.I.P.
is like,
Hastings, though.
Yeah, I know, man. It's sad that it died, but, you know, it's like
Got
a
replaced
Barnes
by
and
Apple
Noble,
Music.
like all that.
Yeah.
But it was an experience, man,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful now. You know, when I was traveling in Europe this past year, to see all of those record stores that are booming with vinyls, man.
Oh, for sure.
And new artists that are putting out stuff in vinyl.
Absolutely.
It inspires me to want to put out. Once I put out the story of part 1, 2, and 3, put the 3-part series out on vinyl.
Did you?
I'm going to, bro.
That's dope.
I'm definitely gonna do that.
Dude, there was somebody was telling me, I don't know, y'all might know listening out there, there was somebody was telling me that there's a group in town in Albuquerque that will show up at your event and actually press vinyl live. But like, I don't know if it's like some 3D
really?
printing technology, but they're able to like, yeah.
Yo,
I
if
gotta
you know
find
about
it.
those people, reach out to me.
Please reach out to us.
Come on.
We're gonna try to find them.
Come on now.
Because we want to work
If
with
that's
you
a
guys.
real thing, that is.
Yeah, they were like,
a
they'll come to
necessity.
your event and like record a recording and then print vinyls of those.
We're gonna put a show together, put some vinyl together.
That would be
Come on,
crazy,
bro.
and then let people leave with albums of the show. Stop.
That's some stuff.
Stop. But I'm gonna say this. You made me think of something cool, and I want to say it since we're
Yeah, what's
recording,
that?
because I always think of cool shit and I never write it down. But like I feel like those Columbia record clubs, I forget what they were called. You like for $10 you get like 11 CDs for 99 cents
man.
or for 1 cent,
Right,
and then you sign
right.
up and you get the monthly CD. That was like binge watching before binge watching.
Oof.
Because guess what? When you receive those
was
12
binge watching.
CDs, you wouldn't leave your house for
You
like
would not.
a week.
Oh my God,
For like
no.
a week, you
And
wouldn't
you'd
leave
listen
your
to
house.
those
That was
CDs
way
over
before Netflix
and over
and
and over. You're
Amazon Prime and all this stuff. You would just be like, I'm gonna listen to these albums. I wasn't gonna leave my room. My mom and dad used to be like, "Are you okay?" They'd bring dinner and put it by the door, and I'd open the door and slide it in and slide it back out because I'm like, yo, I am
You're an
listening
inmate
to
of your
these
own
records.
prison, yeah.
I'm not going
Yeah.
to school until these records are done. Like,
amazing,
yeah,
bro.
it was amazing. And BMG, that was like BMG. I know
Yeah,
Columbia.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
You know what?
Sony had one.
As you're
yeah.
saying that, and you're talking about, I mean, first of all, music is something that is totally unique to that experience, because you can't Netflix binge watch in the sense of like you listen to an album over and over and over
Right.
and over again. Like an album that's so good, you keep listening to it.
Just keep listening to it.
And you don't even have that relationship with a book. Some great books, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? There's some short books that are amazing. I definitely have read a couple times. But I used to remember going to the library too, man, and renting out CDs. That was what we did a lot.
Sure.
And when you rent out CDs and burn them to your computer, now you got a giant
Right.
library. It's like, it was terrible. I know nowadays.
No, you can still do
illegal to
that. I mean, I
sense.
know like there's like intellectual property and we want you to
Right.
buy them, but
Right,
but
and-
the reality
and
is
the artists,
right.
you know, complain
And the
about
reality is to me, and people disagree with me on this. You may disagree with me on this. Is that most artists just want to be heard. The people that really need you to buy the album are the labels, because
right.
they're a big machine that has to be fed big money. The artists will be just as soon, just as happy as you hear it and they get their cut. But if it was a 1-to-1 direct split, that would be fine.
Yeah.
But really, it's like 1-to-100 because you got to pay all these other people because, you know, otherwise I would have never have heard it, arguably, if they didn't have their marketing machine.
And they
but that's
all get paid
changing.
before you do.
But that's changing.
Yeah, it
though.
is. That's
That's
right.
changing.
That's right.
And I would even argue you for the better, right? Because before it was
It is, bro.
consolidated, and now there's an opportunity for artists to be able to make money with or without a major label, and it's part of localism. It's just like you want to buy coffee down the street from yourself, you want to buy beer down the street from yourself, you want to buy the local artist, and you want to support the local musician, and that's
And
just-
now more than ever, we're empowered to do it yourself. Now more than ever, like with what John's doing in New Orleans with Bubble Bath Records, he's empowering that record label, not just
Sure.
he, but Alex Pena, Elijah Carroll, Vivi, and Pats. All the Bubble Bath team is empowering their artists to honestly prepare and educate themselves.
Sure.
So that when
I
the
love it.
situations come up, you not only are prepared and are able to go into it knowledgeable enough to make the right decisions and, you know, not budge on certain things and understand, but to truly like take control of like your masters.
Sure.
Like, understand what that is, where when back in the day you would just sign it off because you get a big check.
Sure.
And you just be like, I'm rich.
Right.
I'm gonna go buy.
It's like I want the money now
new
instead of
guitar,
later.
You know, and then you don't remember that's a loan.
It's the old injury lawyer, you know, not, you know, we're local. I don't want to diss anybody, but like the Ron Whitener or the Ron Bells of the world, right? Like where you're like, I'm sorry, names. He
Mr.
said names.
DUI.
But that like they're gonna negotiate either a settlement for you, which is a big lump sum now, or you think it's big, and then I'll take their cut over something that's a trajectory, which means that, you know, you actually have to budget and be an adult and not spend all your money. But you'll get more money in the long run because they're going to pay you out over time. And it's like, you know, I feel like for artists, they're just savvier. Like, you know, like I'm 40, you're younger than me, and there's a generation younger than us that's like, we don't even want to buy homes.
That's right, bro.
We ain't going into debt.
That's right. We're buying a van and we're going to change
You
this
ain't
van
going
into
into
a
debt.
home.
Like, you know, and that's just a sign of that evolution.
Hakeem, I seriously think about becoming that hippie person that lives in a van. You know what I mean? Because the reality of having to succumb to what is presented to us from high school, from middle school, that you're going to keep going to the next thing, you know, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. And then you're going to get a job, then you're going to get a family, you're going to get married, and then you're going to die.
Right.
And it's like, no, like actually, I really want to travel in a van and go up into Canada and go down, like all the way down to Florida and all the way over. You know, if I can get up to Seattle and then keep going all the way up through Canada into Alaska, like how amazing would that be? You know what I'm saying?
Well, and it's just different. Like, you know, in the old model, our parents' model was like, I paid off my house, I'm gonna give it to my kid.
Yeah,
and if you're lucky, that's still a privilege. If you get something, if you get something free and clear, take it, right? You know, but that like in general, most of us in that middle of the bell curve are giving our children debt or liability.
Right.
Like I'm gonna give you, I die early.
Right.
You know, I'm gonna give you my house. It's not paid off. So here's my debt and my college debt.
Right.
And now it's yours. Or I give you a house you can't afford because the property taxes are out the roof. And so all of those things just feed the machine and the beast, right? You know what I'm saying? While these young people are like tiny houses.
That's right.
And minimalism.
Building a
And
house
I'm gonna
on top of a
rent
trailer.
so I can live in 7 different places because unlike my parents, I'm not gonna have one career and retire. I'm gonna have 7 different careers and I need to be flexible and agile to do those things. And their parents tell them they're stupid and they go, well, evolution proves that I'm not.
And I'll show you, right?
And I'll show you,
That's
right?
right.
And time will show you. And so my challenge at my age is now to be flexible enough to make smart decisions for myself and my family. Like I got college to pay for. My son's 10. I got things I don't want to
Like
give him
you were
debt.
saying, and
But
like
also
we were
to be
talking about
smart
earlier.
enough to be like, and I don't know everything.
Right,
And there's
right.
new stuff happening I probably need to read up on and study to make sure that I put him in the best position, not to do what I think is right for him, but the best position to do what he wants to do.
That's right.
Right, you know,
That's right.
so, yeah.
It's beautiful, man. It's quite an experience having a kid. I can't even imagine, bro. 10 years old.
Yeah, man. And 10-year-olds are way different than when I was 10. Like he's got the internet. Like, I tell him stuff because I'm like, I'm your dad and I'm
Looks it
smart.
up, yeah.
And he's like, no, you're not. Did you know that last year there was a study by the CDC? And I'm like, what does CDC stand for? He's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, look that up. Go to your room.
Bro. I can't even imagine how smart your kid's gonna be when he gets older.
I don't know. With me as a dad, he's just gonna have lots of jokes.
Hey, bro. With the joke, man, you take that tension out the room. That's a whole.
He'll
nother
be cool at the
experience,
party, but he might not be somebody you want as an employee because he'll be a smart ass. He won't be hired, but he'll be fun to hang out with.
man. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yo, we're gonna take a little bathroom pause.
Yeah.
You gotta revive. I always do this. Is that I always start the podcast too late because this conversation gets so good, and I'm like, wait, I gotta push record.
Something about going to the bathroom stimulates your neurons
Right.
and all the cool stuff comes out. Like you're like, whew, man.
I was just asking Hakim where he went to school, and you were telling me that you went to school
In Richmond, Virginia.
in Virginia.
After I graduated high school in South Jersey, Edgewood Eagles, no doubt. Which is, not so far from the world champion Philadelphia Eagles, because that's how we do in that area. But after that, I the first school I got into was a full ride for engineering, chemical engineering.
Really?
To Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia for 3
Wow,
years. And
okay.
did that for 3 years. And then I transferred to a small Division II college because I wanted to play soccer at called Lees McRae in Banner Elk, North Carolina.
What? I had no idea, Hakim. For
7
real?
miles from the Tennessee state line. Black Mountains in North Carolina, Appalachia.
So that's where you said you got into Ben Harper.
Man.
Bluegrass.
So shout out to Lees McRae, the men's soccer team there. schooled this city kid on better medical marijuana back then. It wasn't quite medical, but it felt like medicine. And then on things that I wasn't really hip to growing up in the Philadelphia, South Jersey area, like bluegrass, like jam bands, like Widespread Panic, Ben Harper, who is always in my top 5 musicians of all time. I got to see him.
Really?
On the Carson Daly show at 30 Rock.
The Carson
and we were in line and ended up getting right up front.
Wow.
And I got to I made eye contact and he gave me the chin up. My hero, Ben Harper, so sick, Innocent Criminals, holla. And then who else did I get into? Paul Simon, Widespread Panic, Fish, different kind of musicianship, old school. Grateful Dead, which I found out my mom was into because she was quite the hipped out black person in her Stokely Carmichael days, growing up in New York and South Carolina. I come from a family of oddballs that are like, super like, black politico, quasi black nationalist, but then still like hipped out. I like pop music. I like Ben Harper. I like, oh gosh, what's the white boy's name? Your Body is a Wonderland, John Mayer, stuff like that. Aerosmith, I'm all over the place.
But you always like
different kind of.
You
black.
always like spoke that. You were always loud about that. Like I remember, like when I first met you, you would dress in a way that just like showed, like, hey, like I do not follow any one which way. Like I've got some colored shoelaces on and like some like bright colors and a tie, and I'm wearing some crazy stuff on my head. A hat, whatever. It's like. All the combination would be like I'm a punk rocker / I'm into pop / I'm into hip hop,
Afro punk,
like everything, bro.
Just it's iconoclast. It's equal parts countercultural.
So you were born into
it is
a
just
blend of all that, and
having to be. I was a young black kid in South Jersey that played soccer instead of basketball. So I was always like the odd kid out. Even though most of the immigrant kids, especially the black ones, all played soccer. Like most of the world plays soccer. But where I grew up, everybody was like, you don't play football, you don't play basketball, you talk white, you're a black dude, we're gonna pick on you. I happen to be pretty good at basketball too, so that always helped me fit into my culture, if you will. But a lot of things I did were outliers, to that. But it also taught me that, being stared at, being looked at, being singled out, like you can get used to that. It's like a muscle. Right. You train yourself to be used to being not the norm and not fitting in. And it served me well, even though I grew up in a predominantly black area, when I started going to school in Western North Carolina, or when I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where people stare at you just because they ain't seen a lot of people like you. And, there's 2 ways you can handle it. You get angry and be like, yo, you got an eye problem? Or say, don't believe me, just watch, to quote Bruno Mars, and to be like, if you think I'm a unicorn, I'm gonna show you magic, and your attention doesn't hurt my feelings. I mean, don't touch me and don't harm me or my son, or you're gonna find out that or you're gonna find out that I'm from Philly, right? You know what I'm saying? Right. But otherwise, you're giving me all your energy and I'm giving you none of mine, so I win. And so it's a paradigm my mom and dad taught me.
Yeah,
they were like, it's easy. I remember when I first went to Lee's McRae in Western North Carolina, and as a soccer player, we'd show up and play soccer games in Tennessee, and we'd show up and you could tell by the looks on the faces of the kids. It's the kids who are honest. Adults front and fake.
Oh yeah,
kids are honest. And when you got off that bus to play a soccer game against King College, which is interesting. Not Martin Luther King College, but like King of England King College in Tennessee. And you get off to play, and the fans or spectators are looking at you, and the kids' jaws are on the ground. And they want to touch you because you're the first black person they've seen in real life and not on TV. Wow. And that look because you've been black your entire life. You know what that look looks like. It's not, people can pretend, but You know, I know you have never seen a black person. Your parents have no black friends. It's okay. It's Tennessee. Like, you know,
right.
but you're wearing it all over your face. It's written all over your face. And so, like, you know what that looks like and feels like. And so you get used to being able to decipher in ways which you protect yourself when you know that it's just naivete and ignorance and it's not threatening, or when someone means to harm you. And you learn to feel it out real quick. You know what I'm saying? But I've always been okay with being that different kid, and it's a blessing. I credit it to my parents. It's not anything I did on my own. My mom would just always be like, "You don't have to like me. You have to love me." That's what she would say to us. Like, my mom would talk to us like we were grown-ups.
You don't have to like me,
because we'd be like,
but you're gonna love
"I don't like you, Mom. I can't go outside. I hate you." And she'd be like, "What you say?" And we'd be like, "Nothing," because she would, like, tear us up. But then she'd be like, "I don't care if you don't like me. My job is not for you to like me. I'm not here to be your friend as a parent.
That's right.
But I love you, and I know you love me, even though you're throwing a temper tantrum. And it's okay for everyone not to like you." And that's what I learned from my parents, So be yourself,
That's awesome, bro. So from Virginia to Tennessee, from like, all right, so like, walk me through how you got to Albuquerque from New Jersey, right?
Because I'm a gypsy, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I know the term gypsy can mean something very racialized, but that I get bored easy. Let's just say it like that.
Right.
And I'm like the Mark Twain quote we read earlier. I'm a sucker for love. I want to see the world. I want to see as much as I can before I die.
Yeah.
And I like meeting new people. I like going places where I don't speak the language and I don't eat the food and I don't have the religion, because there's something for me to learn there. And so that usually drives me. And before now, I'm very happy with my girlfriend, Francesca Rodriguez. Shout out, love her. Woo. She's from here. But I was very interested in women who were not from where I was from too. That's a different vice. And so I would see the world and try to find love in all the right places, right? And so,
yes.
But it was really about like listening to the universe and being open to whatever it told me to do. Yeah. And, when I left Jersey the first time, it was because I got a scholarship and my parents couldn't afford to send me out of state. So my grades got me to Richmond, Virginia. Yeah. And then I totally flunked out and lost my scholarship there because I was not a good student, and I really enjoyed my college experience.
Right.
A little too much.
Right.
And then from there, it was like either go back to Jersey or my homie Keithel, shout out Keithel Haynes, played soccer at Lees McRae, and that's how I got to Western North Carolina, because he was whispering that good stuff in the coach's ear.
You said Western North Carolina.
Western North Carolina. No, the town is Banner Elk, but it's really Western North Carolina.
Gotcha.
So like
Western North Carolina is in like on the border with Nashville.
With Tennessee.
Tennessee.
About an hour, 15 minutes.
Those are scary highways, bro. This last year, I drove from Wilmington, North Carolina through Asheville into Tennessee.
Asheville's
into
beautiful.
Nashville. It's
Asheville's
gorgeous,
beautiful.
bro. I love that
and
whole
Wilmington
area.
is fun.
But that freeway, those freeways, I'm sorry to interrupt your story, those freeways in between, like getting out of North Carolina, going into Tennessee, they were scary, bro.
Yeah, and in general, you don't want to be a brown person being pulled over in there.
No, not. Or when you see those gigantic, life-size, monumental crosses on the side of the street, or on the side of the freeway, you're like, I don't think I'm going to fill up my gas tank.
They love Jesus, but they forget he was brown too. So, it's all of that, right? He was brown. He was borderline Iraqi, but nobody wants to tell you that story because, you know.
What's that verse? What's that verse? His hair was...
like wool, steel, wool,
right.
Brillo. Anyway, right. But yeah, I like it. And then I went there to North Carolina, moved home after I finished college, and did that. I worked in the industry that I got my degree in. My degree is in biology, my undergrad degree.
So you started in chemical engineering.
Yeah.
And then you went to biology.
I went to lots of things.
Because
I was searching for myself.
You were in school, and then you went to another school, and then you went to another school, right?
Search for myself. I was a psychology major at one time, and then had a really good religion teacher at Lees McRae, Dr. Craig, shout out. And I was a religion major, world religions. And then finally, my soccer eligibility was up, and I was trying to graduate to make my parents proud. And I was like, what's the closest thing I have credits for? And they were like, biology. Which was ironic, because I wanted to be a pediatrician anyway, and got a minor in communications. And then I got out. Stayed at Banner Elk for a little while because I was working in restaurants and waiting tables through college to make money.
Really? All right.
And then moved home and did a couple odd jobs before I realized I was not going to go to med school, and met my son's mother, and we were like, let's do something different and move west. And I had to go to grad school for something. Since I wasn't going to pursue medicine, I didn't want to be a biology teacher. With the BS in biology, I was like, my minor was communications, and I applied to UNM for communications and health communications, and got accepted. Applied to 2 other schools, and they told me no.
But why New Mexico?
No, we just wanted to go west, and so I applied to UC Riverside. California, for radiology, nuclear radiology, nuclear medicine program, and they said no. My grades weren't good enough. My GRE, whatever, wasn't good enough.
Not smart enough.
They said you're not good enough. And then I applied to, I think, UC Santa Cruz or somewhere else in the UC system for the same thing.
Cali.
And then Cali, I was like, I'm going west, man, because I'm a beach kid. I grew up 45 minutes from the Atlantic Ocean, so I wanted water. But then Tracy came in the house one day and was like, would you consider New Mexico? They have both of the programs we were looking at, and this is before we split, my son's mother and I, before he was born.
Okay, all right.
And I was like, Albuquerque. I never heard of Albuquerque. Maybe I heard about it in those, Looney Tunes.
You did know that New Mexico was a state, though.
I did. I knew that. Give me some credit.
I know. I ain't gonna try and
New Jersey schools are bad, but they're not that bad.
I'm just saying, and you were a very traveled person, and I understood that.
Dude,
but when your girl was like Albuquerque, like, what was the first thing that came to your mind?
Bugs Bunny was the first thing that came to mind.
Really?
The Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Really?
I made a wrong left turn to Albuquerque.
Yeah.
But I will say this. For people, like, I'm going to go ahead on record and say this. You can send me hate mail. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, not on Facebook, because I don't really mess with Facebook because, Russians. But I haven't messed with it in a while. But like, if you don't know that New Mexico is part of the contiguous United States, it's not because your school failed you, it's because you don't want to know. You willfully don't want to know.
Tell them.
Because, like, Mexico is a bad word to you, and it's in the name New Mexico, so you, like, intentionally want to pretend.
You just hear that buzzword, and you're like, Mexico,
it's like dog whistle. Mexico. Like, I'm calling you out. If that's how you act when you say, is New Mexico part of the United States? That shit is not charming. It's not cute.
It's not even that.
You choose to be ignorant.
Hakim, you and I both know, now that you've been connected with New Mexico as long as I have, that when you have that, like, that talk with someone, and they say, and you say, oh, where you living, or where you from, or what's home,
right,
and you say New Mexico, and then they say, oh yeah, I went down to Mazatlan one time,
right,
or they say, oh, I crossed into Juarez one time,
right,
and then you're like, no.
You didn't hear me.
I said New Mexico, Albuquerque, New
Mexico.
It's
cognitive dissonance.
Nowadays, I say Breaking Bad, or I say, Santa Fe, like, art. They're like, no.
Yeah, it's cognitive dissonance. You choose, like, you just don't hear the word, That's like if I said I was African American, and you were just like, oh, so you're from Africa? Like, don't pretend. Don't pretend. You heard me. You're like, so.
But that's definitely more of like a much more common term. It's like people are just like, they just didn't pay attention in geography class. And maybe I wasn't the best at that. I'm terrible with, like, states and capitals and all that kind of stuff, but.
Right.
Anyways, bro.
Yeah, there was like I'm trying to look it up, but there was like a company recently that was like, said, we'd love to have a store in New Mexico, but we only have stores in the United States. Who was it? I can't remember.
Oh, that hurts.
News recently.
Oh,
yeah, well, really, like, we're gonna have to boycott you. It's so bad that I already erased them from my memory. That's why I can't remember who they are. So it certainly won't buy things from them.
Yeah, please.
We won't say their name, just like we won't say, like, whatever 45 or whatever.
All right. So getting back to the story of what you were explaining. So you and the lady at the moment talked about. She said Albuquerque.
Yeah,
you thought Bugs Bunny.
I thought Bugs Bunny. And then I did some homework.
Yep.
Because, even as old as I am, the internet was still a thing. It wasn't like, we weren't in the Stone Ages yet. And I looked it up and I was like, New Mexico. And I was like, there's nothing scary about going there. Like, I'd really never been west of, before I came here. Nope, that's a lie. When I was in college at VCU, we went to Anaheim for like a conference.
Nice.
And back to, like, Richmond. But other than that, I'd never been west of the Mississippi. And I thought it was cool. Some might say, if I were to peg myself inadvertently in the colonial spirit, that the West was still wild. And I was like, it'd be cool to go out there. I don't know what's out there. Right. It can't be that bad. And it ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me, My son is born here. My son's a native New Mexican.
So you and your lady moved here and then got pregnant.
I moved here alone. I moved here alone and went to school because Tracy and I didn't know how to keep a relationship together, which is evident by the fact that we're not together. But we kept trying. We were stubborn and persistent.
Yeah.
But when she came out here to visit me, we wanted to go across the water at that time.
So she told you about the place.
She told me about the place.
She didn't come out with you. You got accepted.
I came.
You were like, I'm coming.
Well, let me tell you a story.
Whatever.
So my dad, shout out to my dad who is in the latter stages of Alzheimer's, and that's the thing my family's going through right now.
Shout out, Mr.
But one of
Bellamy.
the coolest stories about my dad is that when I came home to tell him this, and first he was like, "Okay, you're dating a white girl," and I was like, "Yeah." and my parents are cool about it, right? You know what I'm saying? Because my parents are ministers and they love Jesus and they love everybody. But you know, that was a thing that I educated them on and taught them how to do. But he was like, "You're gonna do what?" And I was like, "Yeah, I quit my job because I was working at a drug company after I graduated college, and I was working in my field because my BS is in biology. I was doing QA2." Microbiologist for Baxter Healthcare, Wyeth Baxter Healthcare, which is at the time it was a Fortune 500 drug company.
Wow.
We would test filling rooms where they filled parental injectable drugs you would get intravenously if you were getting a liver transplant.
Okay.
And that's what I was doing with my degree because I wasn't going to med school, but this was a good job for me to make some money. And they were happy because I was still living at home and, 22, 23, 24. And I was making a bunch of money, way more money than I ever made in my life until the last 2 or 3 years. And I was living at home because they were like, you'll save for a house, you'll get a vacation home, you'll get married soon, have some kids, give us our first grandchildren.
Wow. All of it. They threw it all on
all
you.
the upwardly mobile things that black people want to do to be considered citizens, even though they still won't treat you like one, a la LeBron James. So, it doesn't matter how much money you have, right? Henry Louis Gates Jr., I could go on with the examples, right? But then I decided that, like, I don't know if I want to do medicine for the rest of my life. I was beginning to think maybe I would be an artist, but I didn't quite know how to articulate that yet.
Yeah.
But I was like, I know I can't do this for the rest of my life. And came home and told my dad, like, Dad, I'm going to leave my job at the drug company. And he was like, you're going to do what? What? And I wasn't the guy. I wasn't like, I'm going to go be a poet. I didn't know what I was going to be yet, but I just knew I didn't want to do that. And he was like, listen here, boy. Because your dad can call you that no matter how old he is. He's older than you. He can call you boy.
Yep.
Like he could be 60 and you 40. He still calls you boy. He's like, listen here, boy. Either you will have a job or you will go to school. If you do not do either one of those things, you cannot live here.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Now I'm 40. My son's 10. I feel like I would say the same thing to him. Right? Especially if he was like 20, 22, 23, 24.
Still living at
he
home,
came
not doing
home from
anything.
college.
Right.
I'm like, well, look, if you're not going to go to
Gotta do
school
something.
and get a master's or whatever, and you're not going to have a job, like you can't sit here and play video games and fucking eat Cheetos all day. Like you can't do that, right? So notice my dad is an OG. Like I get 100. But when he gave me that ultimatum, sadly, he gave me 2 choices and I only had one option because I had quit my job already.
School.
And school was the only thing I had going. So UNM said yes, and I said, then I guess I'm moving to New Mexico.
Peace. Wow.
That's what happens,
like
right?
that.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went down. And little did I know that my dad was pushing me towards my dreams.
Wow.
At the time, I just thought he was mean. But later in hindsight, drunk history here, he was an oracle of sorts. Yes, that's what it was.
That's amazing, man. And to realize that, like, your connection came from so many things pressuring you towards coming here and achieving greatness.
2 things. Pressure bust pipes and pressures make diamonds.
That's right, bro. That diamonds comparison is beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Diamonds are maybe not always so beautiful, but...
Yeah, like their blood diamonds, not so much. But
yeah, man, but I mean...
they're there to be
the reality of pressure pushing you towards something and the situation sometimes, like, just shooting you out like birth. You know what I'm saying? That painful, ejection into something that's gonna be much better.
That's
after
real.
That painful...
That's real. It's the only way you grow.
You know?
It's the only way you grow. Like,
Yeah.
I spent time as a personal trainer in my life, things you do to make money. And
Everything you right?
you have to hurt. It's like they say no pain, no gain. That's a really brutal, somewhat Neanderthalish essentialization. But the thing is that unless it hurts, it ain't doing something.
Right.
And that's what growth is. That's why they call it growing pains. Like when you're in your adolescence and they say, my legs hurt. Like tomorrow you're going to be 2 inches taller. So it's okay if your legs hurt. Like,
Say it.
It's
Say
okay
it.
if your legs hurt. Like, or when you take that promotion for that job that you don't quite know if you're prepared to do. And then the first year sucks and it's hard. But the year 2 through 20, before you retire from it, are great. And it's like, how did you get that pay bump? How did you, sometimes you say you can do the thing before you can do it. And I think artists do that all the time. Artists are like, give me the gig and I'll rise to the occasion.
That's right.
Give me the gig and I'll rise to the
You
occasion.
need a 12-foot tall sculpture. I got you.
I got you.
Yep.
And then you go home and you're like, what did I just say yes to? I never did that.
I'm gonna do this. Say it, bro.
And you do it, and then
find a way.
And now your yardstick is longer. Like,
All of a sudden, the bar is like, I just made a 12-foot tall sculpture.
right? And now it's like, how can I make a 16? Or how can I make an 18?
That's right.
And then all of a
That's right,
sudden,
bro.
you're like Louis Eiffel donating
A 40-foot
Eiffel Tower to a young country
Oh
that is, full of shit. And then they make Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda. We took you guys with a real fast forward there. Really fast forward.
We're going to France.
Yeah,
Parlez-vous français?
those were the cliff notes. The cliff notes to American history.
Lithographs you have here in your house.
Right.
No. Man, it's inspiring to definitely dream big, but that oh shit factor. What did I get into? Like that
All the
moment
time. All the time.
is like what propels us.
All the time.
As well as those goals. Sometimes, man. Someone told me once, don't wait. Don't wait because you'll never do it.
You'll never do it.
When you say I just got to get ready, I just got to get more ready.
You'll never do it. They said it about kids. You asked about kids earlier. If you say, well, I'm going to wait till I get this promotion and I have a 3-bedroom house and then I'm going to have a kid,
Nope.
My son
That
is
ain't
the
gonna
best accident I ever had in my life. And people say you shouldn't say that because he'll hear it. But you know what? I also believe that you don't ask for miracles. Miracles come when they're supposed to come. And so I can't, my son came at a time where I might have given up poetry and other things in my life. And it was the catapult to more things. And I want him to know that you'll never be ready. And sometimes you just have to step up to the plate.
That's the scariest sentiment that people always say, going back to that fear of the kids and stuff like that. And I know, it is healthy to fear it, but that idea of you'll never be ready, just jump, but
what they say
in our lives.
My man Survivor is a poet he was from New York and Richmond, and I forget where he lives now. That's a good friend of mine. And he was like, leap from the cliff, wings only sprout when needed. Leap from the cliff, wings only sprout when needed. So you'll never know if you have wings until you jump. And then it's 50-50.
You're gonna hit.
I hate to break it to you. That's 50-50. Maybe you have them, maybe you don't. It's like people who can smell their pee after they eat asparagus. I don't know. It's a hard way to find out.
Yes.
Don't say Hakim told you to jump. Don't say I did it because
It's amazing, man. It's definitely an experience, whenever you have a lot of asparagus and smell that so strong.
You're like, wait, I can smell it. Or people who can curl their tongue. It's just like a certain segment of the population. You don't know if you're it till you try.
Whoa, did you just make a smiley face with your tongue?
I prefer that you try with your tongue before you leap from the cliff, though. It's a little bit safer. Disclaimer.
But I mean, if we're being honest, sometimes leaping from that cliff, whatever that can mean for you, spiritually, psychedelically, emotionally, romantically. I mean, all of those things are situations that come up in your life, and when one teaches you about yourself, it reflects and mirrors to all other parts of your life, right?
Sure.
And that, even though maybe you didn't learn those lessons through each one of those mediums the hard way, you can take that teaching and hopefully help yourself see that teaching in all the ways, right?
Absolutely.
And so
I feel like that's what artists do. Artists, man, I mean, whether you're classically trained or not, I think, Claudio, you're a great example. I respect you so much because you are both classically trained. Like, Claudio can play all the standards if he wanted to. He can make a career traveling with the symphony and very healthy career.
I'm gonna have to stop you because I was not classically trained. I appreciate you saying that. I took like 2 years of classical guitar with Michael Chapdelaine, and he's amazing. But I would not at all.
You would not call
compare
yourself
myself
classically
to
trained.
Classical, but I definitely would say I'm more of a jazz trained because I definitely spent a lot of time with an amazing mentor, Michael Anthony, and had the amazing opportunity for 6 months to go study in New Orleans back in 2012.
Nice.
And start that relationship with that amazing city where jazz was born.
Sure.
And so more so, I would say I'm jazz, but I appreciate you saying that. Just
or you're in the
correct. You know,
you're in the. Let me say
right.
it differently.
But
you could make a career being a session musician,
Sure.
playing standards. Let me say it like that.
Okay, right.
And
right.
in a comfortable career.
Right.
Or you could say, I'm gonna play my own music. I'm gonna create and play my own music. And those are like, and most of us do both. Like, I've done gigs where I read the classics. I've done gigs where I read Whitman and other things just because I'm a poet and people expect that.
Yeah.
But I'm really trying to get my own work out there. And I feel like that's the risk. That's the jump from the cliff. It's like, I could do the thing that's a sure thing.
Yeah.
And make a good above standard existence, or I could go for broke.
Right.
And really put myself out there in this thing that I could do that, but change the world or change music or change someone's mind, heart.
Seriously.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, when you're interested in that, you and I are having the same conversation.
That's right, bro.
Like, we're having the same conversation because I'm like, my son's 10, so I watch a lot of little movies. I watch Book of Life. I watch Coco, and the cool thing about Coco is like, it's like you have to be remembered.
Ooh, that's a
and whether you need to be remembered by
a powerful sentiment, bro.
Whether you need to be remembered by just your family and your lover or your kids, or whether you want to be remembered by the world. I took a video before this podcast that y'all could go see if y'all want, that has like the Dalai Llama on one wall, Jimi Hendrix on another wall, and Claudio in the middle. And it's like, if you want the cheat code to being remembered, holler at His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Jimi Hendrix. Do something different. Don't be a session musician or a session spiritualist, icon, whatever, prophet, whatever, right? So
it's crazy how being an artist, what you do truly is, first of all, like, you're problem solving all the time. And on top of the problem solving, you are then putting those solutions which you sign and kind of like feel like a relationship, almost like you've birthed it through your experiences and crafted it in your own unique way that has your own signature, not just with your actual signature on it, but that will last beyond the years that you are on this earth, right? And so, like, that aspect of what my dad does, which is bronze sculptures and oil paintings, or that aspect of what many singers who wrote and composed their own songs and have those songs and those records and that music out there in the world after they're dead, is like, it's such a powerful thing. And like that movie Coco and that experience, I mean, it was a heartbreaking movie because, not spoiler alert,
Spoiler alert.
The experience, you haven't seen it by now. No, I mean, I'm not going to spoiler alert it, but the experience of being remembered and making sure that you get credit for being remembered, also it means so much. But that movie just brings a beautiful sentiment, which you already said, which was doing something that will
outlast you.
That's
bigger than you. And we should all, we all do stuff for ourselves. Don't get me wrong. I'm not over here on some self-righteous artists do things to give to the community and we're a higher elevation of human being. I'm going to feed myself. I'm going to do the gigs that pay my rent.
Yep.
That put food in my son's mouth and on his back. Like, I'm human like everyone else. We have basic needs. Yeah. That's the social justice person to me. Like, unless all your basic needs are met, screw all this change the world stuff, right? We got to have our basic needs met. That's why unions are great. That's why all these other things are great, because they provide for that. But you want, hopefully, as a good human being or member of this universe or whatever spirituality code you believe in, that you want to do something that is bigger than you, that outlasts you, that impacts more than just the people you're supposed to care about. your kid, your lover, your family.
Yep.
Everybody can do that. We're all selfish.
Right.
But who's
Right.
going to do more than that? And I feel like if you are, whether you're an artist or an engineer or a waiter or a janitor, like that, you are trying to figure out how I make enough money to do what I have to do for us and have a little bit to give to someone else. And if you do that, we can have a conversation. Like that's what I'm like. And I get to do it through my art and words. And so I'm privileged and blessed.
Right.
But other people just get to do it with the extra $10 they have per month. And I'm no better or worse than them.
No.
I'm no better or worse than them.
It's not
because I don't have an extra $10 a month, and they do. All I have is poetry to give them, right?
A small price of $2.99.
Right.
HakimBellamy.com.
Poetry Happy Meal. You get one, buy one, get one free.
Or subscribe now at the iTunes
Unlimited
store.
now while supplies last.
Haikus every other Tuesday.
Broke ass haikus every other Tuesday.
Inspiring nickel haikus.
You know, a broke ass haiku is when it's like 15 or 18 syllables, not quite 17 syllables. I tried.
Short. Oh man, bro. It's an experience, like, you know, getting to be closer with poetry, because I've always loved poetry and had a relationship with poetry, and I've always been inspired by people like you and other friends of mine that are poets. And I think of songwriting as poetry, you know, just as
totally.
poetry in form that happens to be sung and hummed in rhythm and all that stuff and put to melody. But
a lyric is a lyric for a reason, because a lyric is a genre of poetry, like, you know. And now song lyrics are
a genre of poetry.
an expansion of that.
Thank you. Yeah.
That term, but like a lyric is a lyric, and you know, so yeah.
So my mother was, you know, in both my parents are from Colombia. My mother grew up in the farms in a small little town called Caracoli, and my father was in the city and grew up in the city. And like I was saying earlier, they both came from large families. But my mom was the oldest of the females in her family, and so she was the first one to kind of break the ice. And she did that, and she took it upon herself to break the ice of going forward and saying, I want to educate myself. And even though my grandpa said women are going to be taking care of babies and they're going to be in the kitchen.
She was like, that.
Yes. And my mother was like, absolutely not. Like, not me. I'm going to go be professional. I'm going to get my shit. And my mother, like, you know, I adored, you know, the story that my mom used to always tell me of, you know, she'd come back from vacation, she'd go on vacation, or like, because, you know, you'd go to school, or she was like, you know, going to school at a nun school or like a boarding school type situation, or something like along the lines of that. But when she'd come home, she'd pack a little bit of clothes, and just her suitcase was full of books, and she'd just read poetry, stories, novels, everything, you know. And eventually she was doing her own poetry. Right. And that was her thing. And through the help of my grandma, her mom, she kind of turned my grandpa's ear to support my mom so that she can go and do that and go to school in Medellin. And he said, all right, you can go to school, but under one condition. Like, if I so hear of you dating a guy while you're going to school, like, you're out.
Yeah, I ain't gonna date no dude. I'm gonna date these books, Papa.
Yeah, my mom was like always like empowering herself and stuff. But I mean, through the lens of what her creative output was, you know, because my mom was a hardworking type, not like my father, who kind of picked things up more naturally and stuff. It was like she was the type of person who would spend more hours studying the stuff, but she would put those hours in because she knew that she needed to do that in order to actually get the stuff.
Sure.
And man, she came to the States, you know, after she met my dad and got married, and all the kids were born in Cali, and we came to New Mexico, and she eventually went back to school to do her master's degree and stuff like that. But I always, you know, when people always ask me, you know, it's like, oh, your dad's an artist and a sculptor. Like, what does your mom do? You know, and my mom, you know, what her work
she
was.
Grinds.
Well, yeah, she does that.
She grinds.
She's an all-around grinder, but I mean, she was a social worker.
That's
through
cool.
What her master's degree.
She was a caretaker.
Yeah,
social workers are caregivers.
Yeah, she got her master's degree. Her undergrad was in child psychology in Columbia, and then she got her master's degree in family violence.
Down. She's already balling.
And so, not Columbia University.
In Colombia.
In Colombia. Not in Colombia, but in Colombia.
Yeah.
And so And so
that might be even better, actually.
Yeah, right.
Actually,
right. I mean,
while you talking about it, yeah.
Both my parents were educated in Colombia, and I dream, bro, of going back and not doing obviously a master's, but just even attending the art school that my dad attended, just to do the drawing thing and get better at that, because in making a lot of sculptures recently and stuff like that, I realized that like
the hand skills,
drawing is
hand
what
styles.
Opens up everything, because once you have the idea,
it's the understanding of a line.
Yeah, man, and
the basic
shading
understanding of a line.
Everything when it comes to drawing. Like if it's just
depth.
a piece of paper,
depth.
Yeah, depth. That's right. And pen or pencil, whatever it is, it's quite an exercise, and it's something my dad does when we travel a lot. But
that's what reality is, right? 4D. But 4D, man. But it's amazing you said that though, because I feel like that's always the how do you advance beyond your station. And so I'm always inspired by liberation theory and liberation ideology. And so your mom was just trying to advance past the limits that were placed on her.
That's right,
whenever
man.
she was
That's
born.
right.
And we all continue to do that. Like you and I do it. We're like, the limitations of my station I was born into, the family I was born into, me being the kind of first poet of notoriety as far as I know in my family, and trying to figure out how to continue to widen the box so that my son has a wider box to operate in, right? That he's not
and
just
to see the world.
Yeah, like, and it's not all altruistic. It's very selfish, but it's like if I can move the ball a few feet, the next person can move it a few feet more, and that's my job. Run your leg. Run your leg, right? And respect for your mom for doing that. Because it was, as we know, patriarchy is real, and it's harder for women to do that than a man, right?
It is, man. It is, and it's important for people to, at the end of the day, pursue what they love and pursue what they want and what they feel deep down. And I always urge my mom, like throughout her birthday. Her birthday was just yesterday. It's her birthday. So happy birthday, mother. And mama,
go mom.
I always,
it's your birthday.
I always gift her.
We don't have any Bacardi though.
Yeah, I know, right? My mama don't even drink. I've seen my mom like tipsy once in my life, and it was because she had like a glass of wine and a half, I should say.
Wow.
And she was like,
yeah, all that grinding. She ain't got time to be turning up libations.
She does that.
Like, oh, wow.
Yeah. And so my mom, I always was like trying to, for her birthday, which happens to be this time of year, obviously, but I was always trying to inspire her to get back into poetry and just writing in general. And so I'd always gift her Moleskins. It's my favorite notebook. And I'd always just be like, write, inscribe in it, Mom, this is for you to pick up on your days of inspiration or when you're feeling frustrated and you just want to write down and just let your mind go, know? And
relax your mind and let your body be free. Yeah, like that thing, yeah.
Yeah. What's your process when it comes to like writing and like your relationship with writing from early on? Because I know you've got now the relationship of obviously not just having practiced poetry, having, gotten acclaim for winning championships in colleges and stuff like that, eventually becoming Albuquerque's very first Poet Laureate, and now doing the jobs and the work that you're doing. But like when you were when you were in middle school or high school or even earlier, when you first fell in love with just like what a couple lines could do and like a couple lines with you writing them or whatever, what I'm saying? What was that like?
That's interesting. That's an interesting question, Claudio. So I don't get lost in my mental meanderings. I feel like I want to say first that I learned at a young age that the things I imagine have an effect on people. And that's powerful. It's powerful like Bobby's World, one of my favorite cartoons growing up. Howie Mandel, I think, was like this kid would imagine these things, and he would have the whole cartoon would be these long dream sequences of the things he imagined, and at the end it'd be like, wake up, and he'd be like, and he'd be like, that was just like imagination. But it was like for 27 of the 30 minutes.
Wow.
You lived in his world and didn't know you were living in his world. And so I feel like I was a big kid of TV. I was a product of TV. People like to think I'm a poet. They were like, you read books growing up. Nope. I watched a lot of TV. I'm a black kid in South Jersey. My parents worked 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. So we were babysat. We were latchkey kids. We were babysat a lot by the television in that era of the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. But TV is not all bad, and it was like they were telling stories back then. It was pre-reality show. So all the TV was narratives. Many of them were adaptations of books. And it was an efficient way to get information, and so I fashioned myself at a very young age an Imaginarium, a TV writer. And my brother Rashid, who's my younger brother by 18 months, we're really close in age. And so we would go into our room for hours. When I was 7 and he was 5, when I was 9 and he was 7, when I was 11 and he was 9, and we would live in that room because we didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of video games, and we would waste time by creating these fantastic stories for movies we watch. We watched Teen Wolf, right, with Michael J. Fox, and then the next 3 weeks we would get together and make up these role-playing games, RPGs before they were video games. We would pretend we were college kids with superpowers, and all the girls liked us, and we knew karate, and based on Star Wars, and we would make up these games on the fly. It was like improv, but we would do it for all afternoon. Our parents would say, "Come eat dinner," and we'd be like, "Okay," and we'd go do it at night, and we'd go to bed and go to school the next day and pick up right where we left off. So we were creating Lord of the Rings chapters of these things on demand.
Wow.
And we never wrote them down, but that was just our thing until I got 12 and 13, I started liking girls, and then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is corny, this is stupid. You know what I'm saying? But I give Rashid all the credit because Rashid's a writer too, and I feel like those moments of unbridled,
creativity,
unapologetic imagination allowed me to later write those things down. And I wrote a children's book a few years back, and I went to share it in Shanghai last year or 2 years ago. And then when I'm talking to these young kids there, I was like, how many of you guys have an imaginary friend? And all of them raised their hand. And it's an international school in Shanghai, so they all speak English too. They speak 10 languages, but they're smarter than me already, and they're K through 3. But I was like, how many of y'all have imaginary friends? Tell me a little bit of those stories. And they all would be telling me a story. Well, my friend is a spy, and my friend is a professional basketball player. My friend sings karaoke internationally. And I was like, so this children's book I just brought you guys, touch it, bite it. It's real, right? It got me all the way from Albuquerque, New Mexico to here. Guess what that started as? Some shit I imagined in my head, and I wrote it down. And a friend of mine drew pictures to it. And we started selling it. So whatever you have can do way more than what I've done. And I got all the way from Albuquerque to here, and someone else paid me to do it. Amazing, and I'm just telling them, this is not rocket science, dude. What's gonna happen is people are gonna try to kill your spark. And out of the 30 of you, maybe one of you will still draw in 20 years. Maybe one of you will still write stories in 20 years. And then the other 29 of you will be asking for tickets to your show.
Right. Wow. Right.
That's how it works. So.
That's deep, bro. Hakim, you've come out with a couple of books, right?
I got a couple of books. That was my only children's book.
How many have you come out with?
How many? Oh, you're killing me now.
I know. I have written down here that you have a book coming out right now.
Swear was my first.
All right.
And that was actually the legit one. I did a couple chapbooks before that, but Swear was published on West End Press, distributed by UNM Press. Mm-hmm. We got the Tilly Olsen Award for creative writing. If you don't know who Tilly Olsen is, look her up. It's an amazing honor to have my book acknowledged by people from the Working Class Studies Association, because I consider myself a working class artist. And then after that, I did a lot of small boutique publications and self-publishing things. My series of poems from Nepal, my trip to Nepal, Prayer Flag Poems, which I have an exhibit coming up. That was published by Swimming with Elephants Press. Samuel's Story, my children's book, was published by Community Publishing. Carlos Contreras and I, who's my homie slam poet from way back.
Yeah.
We won a National Poetry Slam together along with Aaron Cuffey, Ken Rodriguez, and Esme Von Drager in 2005. Long time ago.
13 years ago.
But Carlos and I came out with a book this year called On a Tuesday from Community Publishing.
You and Carlos did?
Yeah, in January. It was actually part of his master's coursework, but we decided to publish it.
Carlos is going to get his master's.
He's getting his master's.
Awesome
His
for him,
master's, you know.
At UNM, I'm guessing.
At UNM.
Right?
At UNM in American Studies.
Good for him.
And then check out Google Carlos Contreras if you don't know who he is. He also works with me for the city of Albuquerque. He works in the mayor's office.
Really? He's doing that now?
He's doing that marketing in the mayor's office.
That's awesome.
And then I said Prayer Flag Poems. Mean 17 out of Poor Poets Press in Minneapolis, Minnesota, or St. Paul, which is my book of haiku poems.
Twin Cities.
You're right. Oh Death, which is recently published. Andrew Fernside, who's a visual artist I collaborated with.
Yeah.
We wrote poems about all the artists that died in 2017 because a lot of them died. And I wrote a poem about Muhammad Ali in there. David Bowie, Prince, they're all in there. Wow. And then most recently, Justin Thor Simonson, who's a photographer and a lover of buildings, and he works in architecture in Albuquerque. We put together a book called We Are Neighbors we just published thanks to $100 founders that enabled us to put it together ourselves. And it's about the kind of post-World War II housing in the Nob Hill area and the structures of the homes with no emphasis on the people in the pictures, but then I write stories from a personal perspective. And that's exciting. We're going to be putting it in schools. We've got a little bit of...
Really?
We're going to do a book opening and exhibition at the UNM School of Planning and Architecture.
What date is that going to come out? Because I do believe this podcast is going to come out sooner than...
It's going to come sooner than... The books are available now. So I would tell you to go to I'm in Photos, IMINPHOTOS.com. Or if you go to Hakim B, HAKIMBE.com, those are the first two letters of my last name, you'll find all of the information you need, and we'll be telling you guys when the opening is and the exhibit, the photo exhibit. And
when is that opening?
We're making noise. We don't know just yet.
Oh, okay.
No, but next Friday, August 12th through the 20th of September, roughly. That's when my Prayer Flag Poems and my work that I did with Joanne Lafrac of Site Santa Fe, Bo Carey, who's an artist that's going to be gallerying with us, James Black from 111 Art Collective, who is a serigrapher and screen printer. We're all going to crush the Richard Levy Gallery downtown Albuquerque.
That's awesome.
And, if you don't get to the opening on August 12th, it'll be up for a month. There'll be custom-made prayer flags as well as poems etched in glass that Joanne Lafrac did with her residency at Bullseye Art Gallery. But if you just look up Joanne Lafrac, she's a very accomplished glass artist. And her and I went on a trek for 21 days in Nepal in 2014 and came back with all this art that we want to share with the world. She happens to be from New Jersey, too.
Wow.
So,
how cool, man.
New Jersey
you guys
cats
are premiering
together.
in New Mexico. How
this
beautiful,
is the premiere. This is the premiere. Yeah. And Joanne's been through some...
Sick.
She's got an amazing career. She's the director of education at Site Santa Fe, but she also and I feel like it's okay to share this, was the recent victim of a hit and run in Santa Fe. So she's been getting her health back just in time for this exhibit. So you should come check that out. Maybe she'll tell you the story about how she survived being hit by a car.
Wow.
So
we're sending her all the healing prayers.
She's gangster. Yeah, Jersey girls are tough,
bro.
but that's tough.
That is rough. I have a couple friends that's happened to, and that's not an easy thing to
not
deal
easy.
with.
This car culture is dangerous, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Trying to tell you.
That's rough. All right, so tell me a little bit more about this book, man. So the name of the book and the story is what?
So which one? Prayer Flag Poems?
This one is going to be coming out soon.
That's when it becomes
This next one. The newest one, I should say.
I'm in Photos. Yeah, that We Are Neighbors is the newest one. Mm-hmm. Prayer Flags Poem is a book that I actually published a little while ago with Swimming with Elephant Press. Because after Joanne and I got back from Nepal in September of 2014, in April of 2015, they had a major earthquake in Nepal. Many of the UNESCO World Heritage sites that we visited were destroyed, leveled. Whoa. And so I kind of rushed the publication of the book to be able to leverage it to create more money to send back to our friends we had made there.
Wow, man.
And so that was through Swimming with Elephants Press, another local publisher I work with. And so that has been out for a while because we used that to kind of give back.
Sure.
But Joanne still had to go on her residency and create this work. And now we're able to kind of finally tell the story of that trip, almost 4 years ago now, which is exciting. But art takes a while, and so that's where we've arrived at. So that's an older book, but I'm happy to give it a new life with this exhibit. Awesome. We Are Neighbors is really kind of poking fun at the phenomenon that if you're listening to this right now, you're probably listening to it by yourself. It's either in your headphones or on your phone, and you're in the gym or at work, or you're listening to it in your room from your laptop. And maybe you look out the window, and maybe you look across the street at the house across the street, and maybe there's more cars parked there than usual. And maybe you're beginning to make up presuppositions and assumptions about those kids that live over there and always party, or that family over there that might be selling drugs, or that 10 people live in that house when only 2 people are on the lease, or whatever the normal stuff that we do.
Yeah.
Because we don't go ask for a cup of sugar anymore, because you've never sat in their living room, because frankly you don't even know their names, because you're renting, or you've only been here X number of years, or we're just in a society now where we don't actually know everybody on our block.
Right.
And so the fact that Justin took all these photos a few years ago of homes and intentionally made no people be in them, and because I'm programmed, like we're all programmed to say, what about the people? Where's the stories? Who's it about? Who lives in those houses?
Right.
Why is there a car there? Why is there a car not parked there? And we all begin to profile and make assumptions. This book is actually a parody of that, because what I'm doing is I wrote stories for these beautiful photographs. They're exquisite. Lighting, framing, all the stuff that Justin does, because he's an accomplished photographer that collects antique cameras, and a great family man and dad, good friend of mine now. I was just looking at these images and being like, but what's the story? What's the human element? Because there's no humans in them. Because that's what poets do. Like, we project. And so I wrote all these stories for my favorite images that he took, and we made a book out of them and said, this is an exercise in empathy. Because you will assume the inverse negative version is that I see somebody drive by looking a certain way and I make some assumptions. What I'm doing is I'm using my imagination to say, what is it like to walk a mile in their shoes? And that's what this book is about. And we've created a process by creating the book that we would like to share with other communities and say, you know what? You have people that take pictures and you have people that write stories in your community. Let's engage in this exercise collectively, and we'll help you publish a book with your pictures and your stories.
Wow, yeah.
And so this is the beginning of that.
How cool, man.
We have classroom sets we'll share. We'll do walking tours in the neighborhoods of these homes, where these homes actually are. Because at the root of it all, Justin was just interested in architecture, and this is what World War II housing, so
is it Ridgecrest? Is that the neighborhood?
Is it? Well, some of it, I would say,
even more.
Let me get this right. Not south of Ridgecrest. Not southwest of Ridgecrest.
I got you.
West of Ridgecrest.
Or in between Carlisle and Girard.
Yeah. In that hood. Like one stories.
Nice. Beautiful, man. Yeah.
Yeah, the vegetation, the shadows, I'm
really excited to see this.
The cars, the abandoned cars, the oil spots.
Wow.
The external garages that are separate from the house. Like all these little elements that make New Mexico, and then giving them a little bit of what do I want to say? Realism? Magical realism. Yeah, magical realism. A little bit of fictionalization.
Okay. It's got to be a trip. I mean, creating and writing stories like that, where you're creating, like finishing the story.
Yeah.
A sentiment that I use a lot when I'm talking about my father's work, when I'm doing art festivals with him on the road, is that his art teacher taught him in art school that an art piece is never finished by the artist, but by the viewer.
Indeed.
And that truly does allow the viewer to finish the sentiment of what they feel like those two people together embracing signify. You know? Or why there's a lady doing this elegant pose, gesturing backwards, holding a red sphere at the tip of her fingers. And that idea of of allowing art or creating art, like what y'all are doing, to inspire other art, like that's awesome. I love hearing about that kind of stuff, because
and enchanting people back to story,
enchanting people
into
doing
story.
Something that
you're
they
right.
Do, right?
It's totally call and response. It's like Justin.
Yeah.
put this image out there, and he was like, he invited me to finish the story.
Huh.
And that's what it is. Like,
and that inspires you in some way to do that. Was that your idea? The whole like it's the beginning, so that other people can do it in their own.
Yeah, because there's such micro stories. Like, and I'm a poet, so I'm not. This is one of my initial forays into narrative storytelling. And even though they all stand alone, they're all individualized stories. It's not sequential. It is compact. And so they intentionally leave you hanging. And so it's still left up to the reader to kind of finish.
You're just kind of giving them some pointers.
Yeah, it's a prompt. It's a really elaborate prompt.
Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How cool, bro. Now, what's on the horizon for you, bro? Like, what's to come? You got the exhibit. The book's going to come out.
It's crazy. This is my first, like, art exhibit. I've been part in art exhibits before, but this is... Joanne's invited me to this opportunity to really be anchoring an art exhibit. Just my work is infused in all of it with hers, and so that's exciting. It's all about growth for me, and what do I do that I haven't done before?
Yeah.
And so I have a couple one-man shows that I've been in process and finishing. That'll be exciting because I haven't fully presented a polished one-man show yet. So that might come in the next few months or years.
Awesome.
Making lots more music, like the stuff that John and I just did with Reverse. It's like I'm looking forward to being able to spend more time on that because since I have a stable 9 to 5, means that my nights and weekends I don't have to gig so much, and I'm all of a sudden free to
hustle for that.
Spend a little more time on that piece of my art and. Learn an instrument. I'm learning a looper. I'm trying to learn guitar.
That's awesome, bro.
Spend more time with my son and figure out what he teaches me. So there's lots of good things on the horizon, but like a lot of it is this work, with the city of Albuquerque, working at the Department of...
So what's your job now? Yeah.
Cultural Services Department. And so I work if you've ever been to a summer fest, you've ever been to the biopark, you've ever been to the museum, or you've ever been to the library, then I work for you. And those are the things that we do.
Thank you.
To enrich the quality of life of New Mexicans. Mm-hmm. Whether you use it or not, we're there when you think you might want to be there. So
it's awesome.
It's amazing. It's amazing because those Cultural Services Department in particular has always been so good to me. And as a Poet Laureate, I worked a lot through Cultural Services, through public art. Shout out Sherry Brueggemann, who was a big part of my tenure as Albuquerque Poet Laureate, and giving me opportunities to put my poetry on buildings in this city, on the convention center, on the Wantabo Library. And it's nice to be in a position now where from getting checks from the city of Albuquerque to cutting checks to other artists for the city of Albuquerque, it's no small thing. And I don't, the cyclical nature of it is not lost on me. I'm very grateful.
It's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I'm happy for you, bro, because, from having met you, I mean, now as we're uncovering and having this conversation, as we're learning more about each other and stuff like that, it's like realizing that UNM probably was the first time that I saw you and doing your thing to what you're doing now, like in 10 years, and seeing your son grow and, doing his thing and like where you're at. I mean, it's awesome. We all got to grow and we all got to do what we love and what inspires us and what drives us and continue to reach, because if we don't and we just stay stable, it's like we're just going to get old and get stale and expire.
Yeah, well, this is a great place to do it. People always ask me, coming from Philly as a transplant, and I never pretend that I'm from here. I'm always like, one thing that was wise that was said to me early in my career when I was trying to write huge poems, like Levi Romero was one of my mentors, and he was a centennial poet. He was on my master's thesis committee, and he's from Dixon area in New Mexico. But I remember...
Shout out to Dixon, New Mexico.
Shout out to Dixon. When he was like, I was trying to write the centennial poem because I'd been asked to by the previous mayor before I was even announced as Poet Laureate. And I was like, I don't know how to write a poem for a state that's 100 years old, but for a history that's way longer than 100 years old. America has only acknowledged Albuquerque in 2012 for 100 years, whatever. But I was like, I don't know if I'm up to the task of doing that for a state that is so proud and so wary of outsiders, of which I am one. And Iron Levi telling me, like, you know, don't try to be something you're not. Don't pretend you're from here. And don't be too narcissistic and high and mighty about not being from here. But tell everyone, even though you're not from here, why you love here. And if you do that in a genuine way, the people who are from here will get it. They'll feel your love for this place, even though you're not from this place. And I've just always tried to write from that space because I genuinely love New Mexico. New Mexico has given me a whole different life. I don't know that I would have ever been a poet anywhere else and been able to feed my child and grow myself to what I'm doing now. So I owe a lot to New Mexico. Like, I don't know that that would have happened if I stayed in Philly or if I went to Chicago or anywhere else. And so I'm just, I just come from that spirit of a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. Like, I'm always trying to prove to New Mexicans that I love this shit as much as you do. Maybe even more. But I don't want to say that because then they'll be mad. Christmas. But I'm like, I do. I have to prove myself to you every single time. And that's why I work so hard for it. Like, you know, because I'm grateful. Like, my son was born here. He'll always be from here more than me. And I'm a poser, always trying to, like, get y'all to like me, even though I'm a stray. I'm
a transplant.
Right? You know, I'm a stray. You know what I'm saying?
Bro. That's awesome.
So that's that. I mean, I feel like that's just been when it's been beautiful, and I don't take all the credit for it. I think that this is just a place that is loving to outsiders if you choose to humble yourself enough to be here and appreciate it and respect it.
And I totally second your sentiment because New Mexico has been nothing but that for my family. And my dad moving here for that reason, you know, finding opportunity, and New Mexico offered that opportunity to him because someone told him along the way when he was working his ass off for many years and had 3, just had his 4th kid. Someone was like, what are you still doing here in LA hustling your ass off? Like, you should be selling your art. You're a great artist. Have you not heard of New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico? I said, what? And he came home and he told my mom about that. And my mom supported him, of course. And she says, go check it out. And he drove out here, checked it out. Either he drove out first or he flew out, but he came out here and went up to Santa Fe and went to the plaza. And there's a show that still to this day happens about 5 months of the year in the First National Bank parking lot right next to the Starbucks, next to the plaza. And my father came and saw that art show and talked to some of the artists and eventually met this other Colombian artist who did some folk art. And my father asked him, how do you make a living, man? Like, what do you do? And the artist said, this is how I make a living. And my dad said to himself, if this guy's doing it, then there's no reason I can't do it. And he called my mom and was so excited, told her. She says, all right, honey, whatever. Like I'm along for the ride. Let's do it. And so she packed up everything. He came back, packed everything up, and we moved out there. My sister was like a year or less than a year old. And New Mexico offered the same opportunity that you're talking about for you and your career and propelled you to truly begin to every year redefine what your potential is as a creative person.
That's it. That's totally it.
That's what it has been for my father from first moving here and him and my mom having to, rent a small place that was only 4 rooms in the house, and one bathroom, my parents' room, the kids' room for all 4 of us, a living room and a kitchen. And my mom and dad split shifts. One of them would work the night shift and the other one would work the day shift over at MCI, which was, like one of those telecom places.
I know MCI.
That was the spot, and then my dad started doing the shows, which was that show that he saw the Colombian artist at, which was the Santa Fe Society of Artists that still shows to this day. And he showed with them for about 24, 25 years. And then started just kind of going outside the state.
Going rogue, yeah.
And traveling all over. But I bring all that story up and talk about all that stuff because it's a very fruitful place.
Because the artist path is the artist path. All our paths are really individual and different and unique. There are some standard things that the resistance to naysaying, the willingness to buck the system and try and take risk,
Right.
the support system, obviously the people around you that like allow you to do what you do. Like there's no way I do this without the support of my son's mother. Even though we didn't work, I have a great relationship where we co-parent and I have him half time. And I'd be disingenuous if I didn't say that the time I don't have him allowed me to do my work. And when her and I were together, the fact that she handled more of the parenting duties than I did allowed us to do that.
Supported you in a way that allowed you to do your creative thing, right?
And I'm forever grateful. Or that even some of the longer term girlfriends I've had since have helped see my career as a way to move me forward, because they cared about me. And of course, at the end of the day, thanks to my son, who was like, allows me to do this. I tell people all the time, he's only 10, but I'm like, when I'm with you and not with him, even if I'm doing my art, it's like you're renting me from him. And so that's how I justify my fee. Yeah. People say, how much do we have to pay you for this? I'm like, this is the money you have to pay me, because this is what it's worth for me not to be sitting playing video games with him and doing things that make, frankly, sorry, no offense, more memories for me and him than doing this gig with you.
Yep.
Like, like more lasting memories than that. And the people that care about me get that, and the people that don't care about me don't. And maybe it doesn't materialize into a gig.
Right.
So.
Right, but so be it, because your priorities change.
Right.
It's a trip thinking about, I don't even know why it's such a theme coming up in my life, man. Get that thing out of my brain and not even think or worry about kids or anything like that, even though it's beautiful, man. And inspiring.
Well, you know what, Claudio? Your biological clock is ticking, man.
I know it is.
Hey, you want to leave a legacy? You think you'll have some cute babies? Hey, it's like, we say this about women, but it happens to men, too.
You were 29.
I was 29.
I'm 28. I'm about to be 29. And
you're at the right age. You're at the best time.
Oh man, but it's wonderful, man, to have you on the Conversation podcast, bro, because Art Talk Music is all about getting to dig into, first of all, who these people are that I find most inspiring. Not that I'm someone special, just it's from the perspective of me and the world that I see, which is all connected with art, talking, and music. You know what I'm saying? I call this podcast Art Talk Music because it actually breaks down to my essence as far as how I came to be in this world, right? It's like art preceded me. I mean, that was my father's vision of what he wanted to do with his life. And he did art, and through his love for art, and while he was doing art, on top of working on these jobs and already being a father to 2 kids before me, I was born with the intention of being an artist. He wanted to name me Junior and then gave me Toulouse-Lautrec. But then talking truly being the first, or I should say the second most important thing that came into my life, which was your mother's voice. You know what I'm saying? And that soft vibration, which is a voice or a conversation, or you listening inside your mother's belly to your mother speaking with your dad or whoever else you're speaking to. And that is music, right? And then to come out into the world and have all those things align for me continuously, and this podcast finally be something that I've wanted to do for years and years and years, and connect all those aspects of my life, which is art, which is talking to someone like you who's a poet and talks for a living, right? Sure. And now you've got a job and you've got some other responsibilities and you're cashing some other checks, and doing other things and talking. You write a little bit too, But
to your point, there's no way I get to work in the Mayor Keller administration. There's no way I get to be a Kennedy Center fellow. There's no way I get to do some of the amazing things I did, including meet His Holiness Dalai Llama 14, unless I know how to write a semi-good poem. And and it's like all these things that I've been able to do, including all the traveling that we've talked about.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's humbling and never lost on me that it's because I do this one thing pretty good. I could do it better, but there's other poets who are better than me that haven't done some of the things I've done, that haven't trekked in Nepal for 21 days and are about to put that exhibition up, you know. So I'm humbled and encouraged by the fact that, like, for you, because you can play a mean guitar, it's a passport. It opens up things, just like for LeBron James, he gets to see the world differently because he can shoot a good basketball. Like, and there are things that could give you ego about that, but at the end of the day, you're like, but other people shoot a basketball.
Yep.
But other people play a guitar, but other people write poems. So why did this happen to me? And that's where you have to really be like, self-examine and say, you could have a big head about it and that door will close, or you can be humble and grateful about it and that door will continue to open, right?
That's beautiful. Now, before we wrap up this podcast with a little something, I have to backtrack you and ask you, you really did. I forgot about those beautiful photos that I saw of you meeting the Dalai Lama. Can you just quickly tell me about that, bro? Because
quickly, no.
All right.
But I will say this to everybody. I'm working on, I took copious notes. When you're in a room with His Holiness Dalai Lama 14, and who we need to send prayers and energy and blessings to, because his health is precarious these days. It was then too. That's why he was in the States. That's why he was in Wisconsin, because there was certain medical care that he could get that he couldn't get at home. And having been 3 years earlier in the Upper Mustang region of Nepal, having been in his homeland, which is the original border of Tibet. And so I just feel like there's been a lot of my life that's been pushing me towards this Eastern philosophy, this Buddhism, and when you're there, this Buddhism and Hinduism, this intersection. And then to be able to be in a position where my friend Logan Phillips, who's a dope artist, if you haven't heard of him, out of Arizona, he was a year earlier than me. He got to present poems in the presence of the Dalai Lama and audience of the Dalai Lama. And then for me to be there a year later, because Logan had kids and they were looking for someone else, and I got the call. It was crazy. It felt like an out-of-body experience. It felt like some stuff that doesn't happen to you. It only happens when you're on TV and in movies. And to be able to get a blessing from His Holiness and listen to His Holiness talk in a way that is both old and new, in a very old way about things that are very new, which is often what we get from our Native American brothers and sisters and these ancient indigenous ways of knowing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It certainly changed me, because as a person of words, we oftentimes like pretend we're prophets, and then you meet a real prophet, and you really you meet someone who is in a space of royalty, but yet they're more humble than you. They're humble to meet you, and it's an example. It teaches you how to be. It teaches you how to put your ego to the side. It teaches you how to be like, His Holiness rolls with security and all these things, and gets to pray 23 hours a day and all these things, but still has a sense of humor and still doesn't take himself too seriously. And if you can't be in those rooms and see that and learn from that, then you're incapable of learning. And so I think that was the lesson I got from being around him. And I took copious notes, and I'm coming out with a manuscript that I hope to get published called Field Notes of the Dalai Lama, and all the little musings that I took when I was there. Because we were also in a room, thanks to the Center for Healthy Minds and Dr. Richie Davidson, we were in a room where the Dalai Lama was dressing a room of 100 neuroscientists. So they were like smart people, holy people, other people, and then us. So, and all our job was to try to take notes and create a artistic reflection of what had been learned that day.
That's amazing, bro.
Shout out to the Academy for the Love of Learning, Aaron Stern, Molly Sturgis, Vanessa Torres, all the people I went with over there. We were on stage making noise.
How awesome,
and the
bro.
Dalai Lama he said he thought it was cool. So, hey, you know what I'm saying?
How awesome is that, bro? How awesome is that?
Yeah, right. He said it was cool.
Amazing.
So we gave him a little bit of joy, because he's got important things to do, so.
How sweet is that, man? How sweet is that?
Shout out to Tenzin.
Hakim, it's been amazing having you on the podcast, my man. Dude, something that before we wrap this up that I have been wanting to do and talked about doing in the very first little monologue, and I've talked to a lot of people about is the reality that because I have a lot of creative people on the podcast, to some capacity, I'm going to get my video game up stronger than, obviously there is no video at all happening right now.
No, it'd be dope. We'd be like Howard Stern show.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But we're definitely going to get all that stuff.
They don't need to see how handsome we are.
But they're going to see how handsome we will be once we get all this beautiful room and everything nicely dressed up and get these cameras going so that we can get everything live. But an aspect of being able to interact with people that I find creative and am inspired by is getting an opportunity on the podcast live to play a little bit and do a little bit of on the spot improvisation or musical collaboration.
Jazz.
Make a little bit of jazz. You know what I'm saying?
They ain't scared.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
BAM, Black American Music, whatever you want to call it.
There you go. Oh, stop. That's a whole different podcast. Oh. I love this guy.
But, I got my guitar here, so I'm going to tune it up and then move this little mic around, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do before we... We're
going to make some noise.
Say
it's
good
right. It's
night.
how we communicate with aliens, as Sun Ra and George Clinton once said. We'd like to keep it spacey. Michael Jackson communicated with aliens. James Brown communicated with aliens. It is what it is.
I actually watched a really interesting documentary on my way overseas that was called... It was a documentary all about funk. I'm missing the name of it right now, but it was so informative to realizing the direct relationship to Indian and music.
Oh, for sure. Afrofuturism.
Yeah. Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, yeah.
All the bands that did those
Those
things
shiny suits weren't shiny suits for nothing.
George Clinton,
They were-
Parliament Funkadelic.
yeah, P-Funk,
and psychedelics. Oh my God.
Psychedelics,
It's
drug experimentation, mind expansion. Like, Grateful Dead and those cats get a lot of credit for it in the 60s, but this was the black version. This is black stock.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true.
It's a little bit of escapism because, America wasn't treating us right. But a lot of it was like projectionism and figuring out. It's one thing to say that you don't like what is. It's another thing to say that you have a vision for what could be. And I feel like that's where those artists were.
That's the stronger, more empowering perspective.
It's a stronger energy. It's a stronger field.
Yeah, man, and the more effective, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with whatever it is that you're doing.
That's what if I could essentialize the Mother Teresa quote, she was like, screw what you were against. It's a weaker energy than what you are for. What are you
like
for?
that.
And that's a lot, in this age of 45, what do they say, Tronald Drumpf or whatever you want to call him because you don't want to say his name. I knew that guy for a long time because I grew up in Atlantic City and he had casinos there, and I've never heard a positive story about him my entire life, so I can't understand why America elected him. New Jersey didn't because they knew that. But at the end of the day, it's like being against him, whatever, that makes you the cool kid because most of America is against him.
It's not right.
It's way harder to stand up for something when it's unpopular. And so don't hang your whole hat on what you're against because obviously being against him wasn't enough to stop him. Figure out what you're for and work for that, work towards that. And so that to me is the essentialization of Mother Teresa's wisdom,
Mother Teresa's message.
Yeah. And when Dr. King said it later.
That's beautiful, bro. Yeah.
And he was a flawed guy, but he was like a man who has not found something he is fit to die for is not fit to live. That's hard words for a pacifist, but he meant that shit.
Wow.
So,
action.
Yeah.
That's a powerful thing, man.
So you got me thinking about, that's beautiful, Claudio.
Hey.
Something for the mother, right? Something for the earth. Wrote this song with Dial. Shout out to Dial, Central Root Studios, for the Gila River. We're gonna get real greeny, earthy, rainbow circle for you. Because it all goes back to the amount of time we have on this planet, right? Here we go. Yay. First World War, 18 million souls. World War II, 3% of the globe. Cold water, hot water, turn off the faucet. The next World War is gonna be about water. The next World War is gonna be about water. The next World War is gonna be about Gulf War fossilized. Thermo is threatening. Even turbine condensers need the hydroelectric. Now that Mars got water, Orson Welles is a prophet. Cause the next World War is gonna be about water. I said the next World War is gonna be about water. I said the next World War. Hey, everywhere is a healer, make you a believer. Jesus, where is a miracle when you need one? Thermal on the mountain is the people asking for 5 loaves and 2 fish, ain't enough to feed the poor. Wilderness got a peak, but the river is the source. Everybody want a piece when the profit is enormous, especially when it's free, cause taxpayers are paying for it. Till Governor Martinez, the families are getting torn up. For the man, son, the daughters, $1 million deported for borders for our resources evaporate in the water. New Mexico can't afford it. First they walled the border, now they're walling the water. A living organism, a watershed could use a lawyer, say flora e fauna that don't get no human rights. In the river they're aborting while praying to be pro-life. First World War, 18 million souls. World War II, 3% of the globe. Cold water, hot water, turn off the faucet. The next World War is gonna be about water. Gulf War fossilized. Thermo is threatening. Even turbine condensers need the hydroelectric. Now that Mars got water, Orson Welles is the prophet. And the next World War is gonna be about water. I said the next World War is gonna be about water. I said the next World War is gonna be about water. I said the next World War is gonna be about water. I said the next World War. Let me try it again. Everywhere is a healer, make you a believer. Jesus, where is a miracle when you need one? Sermon on the Mount is what the people asking for. Cause 5 loaves and 2 fish ain't enough to feed the poor. Wilderness gotta eat, and the river is the source. Everybody want a piece when the profit is enormous, especially when it's free cause taxpayers are paying for it. Till Governor Martinez, our families are getting torn up. Specialists in water for the grandsons and daughters, $1 million deported. The runoff of our resources evaporate in the water. New Mexico can't afford it. First they walled the border, now they wall in the water. A living organism, a watershed could use a lawyer, say flora e fauna that don't get no human rights. In the river they're aborting while praying to be pro-life. The river they're aborting while praying to be pro-life. First World War, 18 million souls. World War II, 3% of the globe. Cold water, hot water, turn off the faucet. The next World War is gonna be about water. Gulf War fossilized. Thermo is threatening. Even turbine condensers need that hydroelectric. Now that Mars got water, Orson Welles is the prophet. And the next World War is gonna be about water. Next World War is gonna be about water. Orson Welles is the prophet. The next World War is gonna be about water. Yes. Conserve and consume, people. Drink more water.
Woo! Yeah. Hakim Bellamy. Thank you for being on the podcast, man.
Thank you, Claudio.
That was awesome,
This
bro.
was dope. I had a good time.
Yo.
Good to connect.
I appreciate you, bro.
Good to connect
We
live.
definitely gonna do part 2, part 3. Come on now. Get John in there down the road.
Let's
He's gonna
get
be
it.
back in Christmas
Let's
time.
get it.
So
we'll do a
by
bubble
that
bath.
time, we're
You know,
gonna be
Claudio's on
having a
Bubble
video
Bath Records too, so holler at him. Buy those
Holler
things.
at Bubble Bath
Buy
Records.
those things. Buy all the
Holler at
things.
HakimB.com.
HakimB.com. Yeah.
And,
Beyond Poetry Inc. INK.
Thank you.
.com. That's where I put my other stuff at.
And the exhibit is going up when again? August 12th.
August 12th at Richard Levy Gallery.
At Richard Levy Gallery.
Shout out to Joanna Frack.
What part of town is that in? What
That's
part of
downtown.
Albuquerque? Okay.
That's right next to 516 Arts, which is an amazing gallery
of
that
course.
also has subsequently a exhibit on Puerto Rico.
Boricua.
Yeah, representing for
awesome.
the hurricane and
Yeah.
the aid that we did not provide.
Right.
So Defying Darkness is that exhibit. Look at 516. Actually, both open on the same night, but if you get this on your, communique, it might be after the opening. So come down and just check out both. Holler at me.
Check
I'll meet you
'em out.
down there.
Check them out. Hey, who knows? This might come out right before, so
might
people
come out
can
right
check
before.
it out,
We don't know.
But hey, that's the internet. You never know.
The interwebs is different.
The interwebs.
You could be listening to this
connected.
5 years from now.
Woo.
In which case, I'd like to let you know we're in 2018 still.
We are
so
in
don't go by there 5
2018.
years from now because it'll be gone.
So,
But
little Hakim Jr., when you're listening to this,
that's right,
your
Caleb.
papa loves you, and at 10 years old,
Love you.
He only dreams of the amazing man you're going to become in 10 years when you listen to this.
And even when you're 15 and you're cussing me out, let this serve as a record that I love you still. Let this be, because I might not be able to say that with
I'm
my
not here
grown
for
up
you to
words.
Like me, right? I'm here because you
exactly,
love me, right?
exactly. That's it. Blame your grandma.
Awesome,
Yeah,
bro.
she did that.
Hakim, thank you, bro. Seriously, man. Next time we'll get it with some other guests and stuff like that. But thank you so much for this. This has been awesome.
Respect. It's been fun.
And yeah, bro. Until next time, all right?
Until next time.
Woo.
Soon.
Checking out with Mr. Hakim Bellamy. Thank you, bro.
Talk.